Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So, inshallah, I'm going to open the stream today. Hopefully, the doctor and Nazam will be joining us very shortly. So, brothers and sisters, open forum. This is a stream that's now running episode number 46. And it's an opportunity for non-Muslims to call in and ask about, whether it's their particular religion or whether it's no religion at all, whether they're agnostic, atheist, or whatever. So this stream is predominantly for non-Muslims. I might make a slight exception in the early part of the stream if we don't get any one coming on quickly. Then if a Muslim wants to come on and ask a question or whatever before the brothers join, Dr. Imran and Nazam, then you can come on. But we will prioritize non-Muslims to come onto the stream. Now, this particular stream is also, just like the others, alhamdulillah, very popular, and we often get backstage a house pretty much full and struggle to get everybody on. Now we did plan to start 8 o'clock. Sorry, we ran a little bit late as usual, but we will be trying to close the stream around 11, quarter past 11, and as I say, generally near the end of the stream, things tend to get very busy and we seldomly get everybody on. So if you'd like to come onto the stream, the link should be in the description at the bottom of the YouTube video. And also, Anis, I'm sure we'll put the link into the chat for you to be able to come straight onto the show, inshallah. So I was just looking at a few things recently, and one of the things I would recommend brothers and sisters to do is do the No Doubt course that Sapiens Institute have on their website. It's free of charge. It's short lessons, often running at just 10, 15 minutes. And then there are little quizzes at the end of each section. And I think that you'll find it really, really helpful in dealing with conversations surrounding dawah in particular. And the reason why I'm sort of pushing this a lot is because we do have a lot of people who ask us in terms of how can I go out and learn dawah? How can I give dawah? Can you recommend any books? Can you recommend? It's a really good course. It's a very, very good course. The No Doubt course on the Sapiens Institute. It goes through things very methodically, and it will really help you to do dawah. And even if you're a non-Muslim, by the way, you're a Christian or a Jew or of any other religion, I think you'll still find that course very, very helpful, because it really does run through how human beings have assumptions and how those assumptions actually make a huge difference in terms of how and what conclusions you come up with. And understanding the psychology, the philosophy, really does help you to become a more rounded individual. And in particular, as I say, if you're going to do dawah, I think it's one of those great courses that you want to learn. It also will help Muslims who possibly, as I say, have doubts about Islam or about God, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it actually will help you with that as well. Okay, I'm going to get Jason on first. Jason, just give me a quick wave if that's okay. Okay, lovely. Jason, welcome to the stream. How are you doing?
Okay, Abbas, God bless you.
You're looking very fresh today in your pink. Is that a t-shirt or a sweatshirt? I can't see your sleeves, so I'll just guess.
Thank you. You're looking fresh too, bro.
You all right?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You're not going to get angry and leave us today in a huff again, are you? Are you going to?
No, there's just a few questions. One or two questions of clarification, that's all.
If you can just speak a little bit closer to the microphone, I'm fine.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better, yes.
Yeah. I went on the Islamic awareness, and I've gone through 3 manuscripts, and I hope to go through more. I don't claim to be an expert or anything, so I'm just learning, and that's a genuine statement. So, and I have 3 manuscripts that I went through, but I just wanted to ask a couple of questions on one manuscript.
Please go ahead.
There's a manuscript at Tashkent. It says Quran of, this is on Islamic awareness, so if you want to follow it, if If anyone wants to follow it, go on Islamic Awareness Quran manuscripts, and it's the first manuscript on the list. If anybody wants to follow it.
Tashkent one, is it? Is that right?
Yeah. So you can follow it there if anyone wants to know what I'm talking about. And the question that I wanted to ask, well, two questions. One, could anybody elaborate on the dating, how you date the Qurans? I'd be very interested. So that's not like trying to challenge Islam.
So basically how experts would do it is that they look at the paleography, they look at the text itself, and obviously within certain times you had certain styles of writing letters, for example. So that would be one methodology. The other one would be carbon dating, and carbon dating obviously has its limitations because anything that's been living, i.e. a skin or leaf or something, you can carbon date that basically. The problem with the problems that can sometimes arise with carbon dating is that what it basically tells you is when this particular animal would have been alive or at the point of its death. So if it's written on a skin, for example, it could tell you that this goat or whatever the skin was died at, and it would give you a sort of a banding. It will say either 30 years before Hijrah or 30 years or 40 years after Hijrah. And it will give you a sort of a scope of where the date could be.
Yeah, that's what I was confused, Abbas, honestly.
Yeah, so what it is that you can't say, so it would be an incorrect methodology to use the mean date. So if you had, for example, let's say minus 50 plus 50, you could not say, therefore it's 0. You can't just go in the middle and say it's year 0. You can't do that with carbon dating. It just has a probabilistic analysis of where it can lie. And so that's generally how it's done. Now, there might be other, I'm not an expert on this, but there may be other ways of verifying it. So it could be that if the style matches another text that's of a similar age, for example, and it's been carbon dated and the style is very, so there could be all of these sort of reasons. Does that help you, Jason? Yeah,
but I was just wondering, there was a couple of things that confused me. One is sometimes it would have, say, like I've got on this manuscript, it's okay. It's just one. No, it's 2. It's got, and it says a 68 probability, and then it gives a date 6040C. To 765C, and then it says 95 probability 595C to 85C. So I'm confused. I don't understand.
Yeah. So
what they're doing there? I honestly don't understand what.
Yeah. So what you're asking me to do is define scientifically how carbon dating is done. And my rudimentary understanding of it is that it's basically the carbon decay of anything that was living, and you get a probabilistic banding of and how probabilistic something is to fall within those dates. But it can be as likely sometimes to be earlier within the banding. It could be near the earlier part or even near the later part. It's not an exact science giving you the exact number of years. It gives you a sort of a general
idea.
30, 50, maybe 80 years, sort of, depending upon the dating that's been done.
Do they date the ink? Are they able to date the ink? Do they do carbon dating on the ink or not?
To be perfectly honest, I don't. If I remember rightly, that's not how it's done. It's done it has to be something that was living. So if it was blood, then maybe they might be able to do it. But I know the Quran is not written in blood. And so that might not be possible. I might be wrong on that. But from my understanding, it's actually the parchment, the living animal skin that was used, or the leaf or the palm leaf or whatever it might be used, that can be carbon dated because of carbon decay over a certain period of time. But you see, Jason, one thing to just note here was very, very important. As interesting as carbon dating is, the Muslims don't rely upon carbon dating to verify manuscripts. And the reason why we don't is because it's just an interesting thing rather than evidence for the preservation of the Quran, because for us, the primary source of evidence is the oral tradition, the memorization, the mass memorization of the Quran. And it's a living example, which has also been noted by professors from Harvard and what have you, that in fact this makes the primary source of recording for the Quran. And in fact, it is more robust than even the written Quran, because to have multiple chains of narration ending up in multiple locations of the world, despite often being separated geographically and separated, because of a lack of obviously mass communication and what have you, to have exactly the same number of readings and have chains of narrators, memorizers going right back to the Prophet, peace be upon him, it couldn't have happened that way unless there was preservation.
So when I got, this is not a trick question, this is a genuine question. I got 3 Qurans here, but they're in English.
Yes.
And what I can't understand is, when you're compiling a Quran, say today, let's say some Islamic Dawah team are publishing a Quran for the British people or German people. So what do? Do they say, right, we're going to use the chain of narration to produce the Quran? So let's say they publish this in German. Is it like they're using a chain of narration, or is it like they'll use the top copy and chain of narration? Like, how does that work when they're publishing the Quran?
The thing here is this, Jason. There is no contention, even amongst the deviant groups within Islam, i.e., people who we don't even regard as Muslims.
Yeah.
There is no opinion really that exists where people don't agree what the Quran is.
I know.
So what I'm trying to say to you, Jason, is that we don't have to go back to the top copy or the Egyptian edition. We don't have to go back to the any of the other editions of the Quran that existed historically, because there is no confusion upon what the Quran is. The Arabic Quran that we have today is perfectly preserved and accepted by unanimously by Muslims, that this is in fact the Quran based upon evidence. Okay,
I've got that. But what I don't understand, right, is that say you're publishing a Quran for Germany.
Yes.
Just for example, if you're relying on oral tradition, is it the Hafs oral tradition, or
we have oral tradition, Jason, and we also have the written Quran today, don't we?
Okay, but it's not a trick question.
I'm not saying it's genuine. No, but I'm answering the question. If I wanted to translate a Quran, Jason, what I could do if I spoke Arabic and I learned classical Arabic and I learned Quranic Arabic, I could go to any shop and pick up an Arabic Quran, right? And remember, 95% of the world reads Hafs al-Asim, and it's only a very small percentage of people who read Warsh in North Africa and what have you. I could go and pick up any Quran in Arabic and I could do a translation of that Quran.
But all I want to know is this Quran or this Quran, in order for it to be correct, because anybody could make a Quran. You could have a Dawah team that's gone AWOL and they're not really Muslim and they publish a Quran, but they're not correct because they're not using what the oral tradition is. So surely, like when a Quran's published, it should have, or does it have some authority? Like these people published this and they used this oral tradition. That's all I'm saying is.
Yeah, but you're assuming that only the oral tradition is used, and I'm explaining to you that the oral tradition, though it is very robust in terms of preservation, today we have that oral tradition in text as well. So the Quran can be studied from both oral tradition and from text. And because both of them are the same, you can actually translate the Quran either from the oral tradition or you can translate it from the written text of the Quran, which is in existence today.
Why is it like in these Qurans, why isn't the information put in? We have used X, Y, Z oral tradition. We have used X, Y, Z manuscripts. Why in 3 Qurans? And I think Yusuf Ali I have upstairs. I can't rack my brain.
No, because Jason, you see that the issue here is you would only have to do that if there was uncertainty in terms of which chain of tradition, chain of narration to use, because they differed. Because they don't differ, it's irrelevant. Look, Jason, what you're doing is you're mirroring how the Bible is constructed, where you have to relate to which folios or which manuscripts you're using. It's because those manuscripts differ, and because there is a difference of opinion as to what constitutes the Bible, therefore you have to list where you're getting this information from. We, alhamdulillah, in Islam don't have this issue.
But surely you have...
So no, let me just finish, Jason. So there is no confusion or problem in terms of which oral tradition, because all of these oral traditions conform to the written Quran that we have today. So I don't have to say, oh, I'm using this tradition, I'm using this chain of narrations, because they're all the same, Jason. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
So you don't have to prove what's behind any text of the published Quran. You just accept generally it's been preserved, so nobody has to prove anything, just publish the Quran.
No, the proof has already been done. The proving has already been done. Now what we have is the written Quran. If you wanted to, for example, if you wanted to question somebody who's translated the Quran and said, where did you get this from? And he will just simply say, Al-Quran. He won't say, I've got it from such and such manuscript, such and such oral tradition. He will simply say, the Quran. And you will say to him, which Quran? He will say, it's irrelevant because they're all the same. Right. And so the point that I'm trying to make to you, Jason, is the proving of the Quran. If you said to somebody, for example, what's the evidence that you have that this Quran that you have conforms to the early tradition of Islam in terms of what the Quran was? That's a separate question. We can go into that and explain that. And there's a plethora of evidence, including from non-Muslim academics, and we've mentioned the name many times, Professor Angelika Neuwirth of Germany, who basically says that this was a fixed early text. There was no confusion as to what this text was. She also says, far from contradicting the Islamic narrative of preservation, the extensive manuscripts that have now been discovered in the last, say, 20, 30 years or whatever, they only confirm and reinforce the Muslim opinion and view of preservation rather than contradict it. So these are non-Muslim academics who are widely in agreement.
I'm not disagreeing with that, Abbas. I'm not disagreeing with that. What concerns me is that I'm not an expert in these things. I'm just learning. So please, I'm speaking in a humble, up to you guys. You know more about these things to me. But what concerns me is that, like, if I read the top copy, about the top copy, and apparently there are different parchments dotted all over different places, and they say that this is the top copy, and they've got to the St. Petersburg copy, for example. There's a manuscript in St. Petersburg, but there are also parchments or folios in different places. So
no, Jason, that's incorrect, because I think the top copy is 86% or 88% complete.
Yeah,
one second, Jason. The Cairo edition is some 99%, I think, complete. The one from Tajikistan is, I think it's Tajikistan, if I'm not mistaken. Is again within 890s or whatever complete. The issue that I'm trying to make to you, Jason, is you seem to be stuck upon manuscript evidence when I've already explained to you that our primary source of evidence for preservation is the oral tradition, and non-Muslim academics have accepted that actually, if in many ways this is superior to the written text. And I'll explain to you why. Because if corruption had taken place and multiple readings of the Quran were being recited, over time, you would expect those at best to stay the same in terms of multiple readings. But in reality, you would expect that those deviances and the differences would actually grow over time. Now, the very fact, Jason, that we don't see this effect, we have to then say this particular cause, i.e. corruption, could not have taken place. Because we have a 5-year-old in Japan or a 5-year-old in America or a 5-year-old in Kenya, if they were to read the Quran from memory, they'd be able to correct each other even if a vowel was mispronounced. And you can only arrive at that type of precision if you have a fixed, preserved text. Without that, it's not possible, Jason. And this is why, Jason, as a Christian, I find it a little bit unusual that you're asking me these questions, because this is precisely the problem that you find, Jason, in the biblical discourse, which is that no two Christians will often agree as to which text is verbatim the word of God. And in fact, most Christians today accept that the Bible is not necessarily verbatim the words of God, but it's the opinions of either witnesses or eyewitnesses or people who came afterwards who recorded these things. So we have to be honest about our discourse. Now, we don't have an issue with preservation of the Quran, Jason. This is what I'm trying to explain to you.
Yeah, I'll just check in there. If you go on Islamic Awareness and the first three manuscripts there are some, and I don't know if it's the second one or the third one. It's one of the oldest ones. There are folios here, there are folios there, so you can check that. But in this manuscript, in the Tashkent manuscript, there's a guy called Pisaref, and he was a guy that I think in the 19th century. You can check it on Islamic Awareness. This is the first manuscript on there on the Quran manuscripts. And Pisaref saw that in the Quran you couldn't read it, so he started, before he did a fast mail or published it, he wrote ink on it, and some said he fabricated it, but he didn't fabricate anything. He just tried to make it right. It's things like that I understand you're talking about oral tradition, but people need to know in any book what source has been used. So
okay.
if they're using the oral tradition and certain manuscripts, then you put that and say in your title of your Quran, we used the top copy and we used the Hafs oral tradition. But you never do
guys. Assalamu alaikum, by the way. Apologies. I thought it was 8:30 start, hence I'm here at 8:30. I didn't realize we were starting.
Pisaref. If you look up Pisaref at Islamic Awareness.
Okay, Jason, I'll let Imran come in there, but I'm just going to explain something to you.
So there's a fundamental mistake.
I'm just going to finish up. I'm just going to finish my point.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, Jason, the point you're missing here is, if anyone was to fabricate or write something incorrect within the Quran, because we have the oral tradition, that Quran is rejected immediately. So there are people in recent times, non-Muslims, who've tried to introduce a new Quran, Furqan, they called it, the Furqan or something.
Yeah.
And they tried to introduce that. And guess what? The Muslim world simply rejected it. Why did they reject it? Because we have the robust oral tradition. Hold on a second, Jason. Even today, if you print a Quran, it goes to the memorizers and the reciters of the Quran to ensure, to verify that the printing that has been done is correct. So you keep going back to manuscripts, you keep going back to Tashkent, you keep going. But what I'm trying to explain to you is the oral tradition is unique to Islam. Yeah, it is robust, and it is more robust than any text that could be written. And if anything is incorrectly added or taken away, it is immediately rejected because we have this oral tradition. But anyway, look, I've made my point. I'm going to let Imran come in there, inshallah.
Can I say something, Dr. Iman, before you say something? It's just quickly, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
even if I agreed 100% with what you're saying, what I'm trying to establish is, let's say I disagree in some level, but let's say I agree 100%. The issue I have, I'm not disputing the oral tradition. I'm not disputing the manuscripts, right? I'm definitely not doing that today. The question and the issue that I have is verification. That's the issue. The issue is verification. If somebody publishes a book or gives a book and it's based on oral tradition and manuscripts, I need verification. So, for example, if there is this oral tradition that you're saying, then it must be the orthodox oral tradition. So therefore, when a Quran's done, surely it should be put in that such eminent imams in Egypt, they say that this Quran is correct and it's verified by the oral tradition. That's all I'm saying, verification, so that we can check, yeah, it comes from this oral tradition. That's all I'm saying, this manuscript. And it seems when I look at manuscripts, it might be different in Arabic, so forgive me, but when I look at English manuscripts, English Qurans, I don't see any verification where I can say, oh, right, it's this oral tradition of these imams, and I can go to them and I know that they're authentic. That's all I'm saying, Abbas.
Jason, so there's lots of errors in basically basic understanding and application of this. You're using this term verification in a really odd way. So let's start by asking you the question, what do you mean by oral? Because you're talking about, if I have an English translation of the Quran, I want to know which oral tradition it has come from. Now, what do you understand by the term oral tradition?
Well, I'm just saying whatever you understand the oral tradition.
No, Jason, that's not, because you're making a point that's incorrect. And the reason it's incorrect is because you're basing on a misunderstanding of the term, because you're talking about translations, and in the same breath you're saying, I want to know what oral tradition it's come from. This tells me you don't understand what an oral tradition is, because there is no translation of an oral tradition. An oral tradition is the way you recite the Quran in Arabic.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
So hear my words. So if the oral tradition is the way you recite a Quran in Arabic, how are you going to get that on a piece of paper? The question it seems to be you're trying to ask, but you're using the word oral tradition to try and, because you say you don't dismiss it, but then you're dismissing it in your.
I'm not dismissing it.
1 second, let me just make the point.
I'm not dismissing it.
So the oral tradition is the recitation. Is the recitation of the Quran. The skeletal text on which the oral tradition is made, the different ways of reciting the Quran, is the same for all. So all of the different ways of reciting are from the same Arabic text. Okay. Now the translation is nothing to do with either of them. The translation is not to do with the oral tradition or to do with. Do you understand? Anybody can make anyone can make a translation. So the question. So just 1 second. I'm just trying to, because I've been listening to a little bit of what you're saying.
Yeah.
The points that you're bringing across just tell me fundamentally that you're mixing two different concepts. The oral tradition is we have people alive today who can recite the Quran in all of the ways of the oral tradition today. Millions of people who can recite the Quran from memory. Okay, that's our oral tradition. This is our oral verification. It's the primary mechanism of verification. The second, the other point about the manuscripts is we have manuscripts that we can date back to the 1st century, etc. 99% complete, many of them. There are different manuscripts, and obviously different manuscripts have different amounts of the Quran preserved within them. But we have, Qurans that are virtually 99% complete, available for you to read. And we have some that are dated to within the life of the companions, peace be upon them. The Birmingham, for example, parchments, for example, the manuscripts that we have that are available. So, and that actually adhere completely with the Qurans that we have today. There's no issues in terms of any written down variations. Now, so we don't have an issue with either of those things. Either we have manuscript preservation and we have an oral tradition, but you're not talking about either. You're talking about translations.
No, you're misunderstanding me, Dr. Imam. I'm just, because I don't know Arabic, you see, so I'm just assuming that these English Qurans are based on what you're saying, oral tradition, and Arabic oral tradition into and then Arabic manuscripts. That's what I'm assuming. And all I'm saying is whether it's a Quran published in Arabic or in a translation, all I'm trying to say is that the oral tradition that you're using.
No, see, this is the mistake. This step is the mistake, Jason.
Yeah.
These words you say, the oral. When I'm looking at a translation, I want to know which oral tradition you're using. This is the mistake you're making. This is the mistake in the understanding.
Or in Arabic, or Dr. Amram, it's in Arabic. Let's say it's a Quran in Arabic, right?
Yeah.
The oral tradition that goes behind the Quran that's been published in Arabic.
No. So this is a second mistake. So these are two mistakes that are compounding.
Okay.
So all of the oral traditions come from the same skeletal text. Do you understand?
Right.
So I'll say that again to you. By and large, the text does not change from no matter which oral tradition you use. Let me make things easier for you. Are there Qurans that are translated that contain all of the oral traditions, the variations in the possible meaning of a word? If you're using the different oral traditions, yes. I'll give you a translation here, the British translation. Have you come across this?
No, I've not come across.
Okay, so maybe because one of the things that people try to do, and I'm not accusing you of doing this, and they happen to be Christian when they do this, is they make this sort of, you're not telling the masses about this oral tradition and the change. They make this sort of conspiracy theory that's that's going on, and the Muslims are hiding. This is ancient. People have been talking about the oral traditions for years. We have an oral tradition going back to the time of the Prophet with authentic terrains. Now, in this translation, what they have is they have if there's a slight variation of oral tradition. So I'll give an example. In the first surah, the word Malik can be read Malik or Malik, and depending on the way you're reading that, it can have two meanings: owner or a master. Now, so what the translator does is he makes a note and he writes that this in this tradition it's pronounced slightly differently. It can mean this, it mean that, with that pronunciation. So it's available and it's there. Now the problem problem here is you're missing the point here. So the problem here is that the skeletal text doesn't change. And I agree, and I go back to Abbas's point that what you're trying, because there's a difference between Christianity and Islam on their preservation of their texts, and I'm going to just lay it out for you so you understand. Christians, you have an author. Let's just assume that you know who the author is, but we won't go down that. You have an author who writes a letter or a gospel or whatever that might be. But I write it once, and that is then found, and then you find other gospels or other manuscripts that claim to be that same gospel or letter, and there's variations amongst them. You then have to work out which one is the actual one that was written. There's overlaps, there's similarities, there's differences, and so what you do is when you're producing a copy of the Bible for people to read, what the people tend not to be aware of is this is a conglomerate text. Different verses and words from different manuscripts that are differing are combined together to make a text, a diplomatic text that is, an eclectic text, which is a mixture of these different manuscripts to try and get near the original. Now, and there's no oral tradition, so there's no way to go back to the original, and there's a gap between the said time of writing and the earliest manuscripts we have, 200-300 years, however you want to put it. So this is what Christians are trying to come to the originals near as they can to the original. There's a time gap difference, and they cannot say which one is the actual original manuscript. All the manuscripts, if they're dated in the same time, have to be taken as equal value, and so there's no way to weigh them against each other. Islam, we don't have this issue. What's the issue? So how does it work with Islam? Right. So let's go back to so let me just explain, because it's important to know the difference. So the Quran was revealed in the different modes of recitation. So from the beginning, we have the different modes of recitation being revealed. This is the original. So this is not the author giving you one way of reciting and this is it. And then the other ways of reciting can be looked on as variations. No, you're given the various ways of reciting from the beginning.
Right.
These are then transmitted in two ways: written and oral, primarily being the oral transmission. So we have both of these coming for the last 1400 years to now. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when we look at manuscripts, and we have the oral tradition still looking, we can look at a manuscript, and we can easily look at this manuscript. Say if the scribe has made a huge error, and they've changed the sentence, or they've missed a whole line out, or something like this, we can give it to the people who have memorized. They'll look at this text and say, "Yep, they've missed a verse, or they've added something, and this bit is not Quran." They will know why, because we have these two mechanisms. Then the question is, how do the Qurans does the writing differ between them for the different ways of reciting? No, the same skeletal text is used to produce the sounds. It's just a different way of pronouncing the words. So I'll give you an example of this in English so you understand. Yeah. So the word center. How do you spell the word center?
Center. I'm dyslexic, Dr. Imam. You have to spell it.
Okay, color. How do we spell the word color?
I'm dyslexic.
You can spell
dyslexic.
color? Can you
I'm
spell
dyslexic.
color?
I'm dyslexic. You have to spell it.
You can't spell color?
If I can't. You spell it.
You can't. Okay, so this is a problem now. Because if you're not able to understand,
I'm dyspraxic and I'm dyslexic.
Oh, that explains a lot in terms of our interactions, maybe. But if we look at the word color, for example, in English we spell color CLOUR. Yeah. In American English, they spell color COLOR. Yeah. If you look at the word center, we have variations amongst the different English-speaking people. So the word center is CENTRE. Or CENTER. It's the same. It's pronounced in the same way. Has the same meaning. Do you understand? Now, these are. I'm telling you about different ways of the ways that the spoken word can be written down to make the sound. Do you understand? It's the sound being translated into a written text. Now, what we have is we have the written text, and we know how to pronounce it in different ways because the Prophet, peace be upon him, has taught us.
Okay, yeah? I hear what you're saying.
You understand? So there's a fundamental difference between the revelation and the transmission of the text. We don't have the problems of the Bible. We don't have them.
I hear what you're saying, but this issue of verification is you're still not.
Let me get to the verification for you.
Can I come in just a second? Because I've listened to a lot what you said and respected what you said. That taking for granted what you're saying about oral tradition and taking that you showed that book.
But you're not doing that, but Jason. Because you're saying because what you do is, and you did this last time, Jason. You said, I take for granted what you say about oral tradition. And then you ask about verification. Yeah,
because the thing is, there's got to be.
So what is the oral tradition, Jason? We're coming back in a circle now. What is the oral tradition?
There has to be in that oral tradition. There has to be authority for oral tradition. It can't just be.
Yes, there is.
It can't be anybody's oral tradition. It has to be.
So, Jason,
it has to be. Can I just finish?
I'm just showing you what it is, Jason. Here it is, right? So you've basically got 5 companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, here at the top, okay, who have relayed the Quran. By the way, they get it from at the top here. It says Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it goes right to the top, which is Allah, Jibreel alayhi salam, Angel Gabriel, and then it goes right to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then what you see is as you come down, you see the different colors, i.e., where the Quran ended up in different countries around the world. So you might have Egypt, you might have India, you might have, Turkey, whatever you might have. And when you come right down the bottom here, Jason, these would be the modern day scholars, basically, who would have relayed the Quran through the complete oral tradition, Jason. Now, the way that you would verify that, Jason, is that if these different oral traditions ended up in different countries around the world, from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam right the way to modern times, and there was as I say, geographical and communication, barring, let's say, within those particular societies, then what you would assume is if they are the same today, then they follow the chain right back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then this would be a great evidence for the oral tradition and its preservation.
Okay.
Any theory you would then apply that would cast doubt upon that would have to have the same level of strength, if not greater, to sort of diminish that in any way. And there hasn't been, Jason, and that's the problem.
But I've heard what you said, but every time I try to talk, you then go on and you what I've noticed with you, I don't know if you've noticed, but you find it difficult for me to challenge you on anything. Because if I say something, you correct me for about 5 minutes. And I think that if your view is correct and if it's true, it should be able to be stand up to scrutiny, intellectual scrutiny.
Yes.
And so you should allow me to ask you some key questions.
But Jason, you do realize that a challenge can be 5 seconds, and the answer.
But I've not.
The answer can have to be several minutes in order to deal with all the facets. Deal with all of the facets of evidence that need to be given, right?
But I feel like the way I feel when I'm talking to you, I feel like we can't ask you questions, we can't challenge you. As soon as I say something, I'm corrected, and you talk for a long time. When the main point that I'm trying to get, you've not answered that point.
Okay, Jason,
I feel like
Jason,
there's a massive hole.
Jason, ask your question. Jason, ask your question. But I'm gonna give you a little warning here. If the question has already been answered by myself and by Dr. Imran, we're simply going to say we refer to the answer we gave some moments ago. Okay, we're not going to regurgitate the whole answer all over again. So we're going to be fair, but at the same time, we're going to be firm. Please ask your question, Jason. What's your question?
So the question is that, say, the Yusuf Ali Quran, the Yusuf Ali Quran, what oral tradition and manuscripts are behind that?
Okay. I'm referring to the answer I gave some moments ago.
So there's no evidence. You're not giving any evidence.
What is this that I've just shown you on the screen?
Yeah, but no. Why is it not stated in that Yusuf Ali Quran?
Jason,
I've asked you something specific.
Jason,
question.
Ali. No, hold on a second, Jason. If that chain of narration was stated in the Yusuf Ali Quran, would you then accept it that it's a valid chain and therefore it is the word of God? Would you accept that?
Then I can investigate it.
No. Would you accept that? Would you accept that?
I would have to investigate the chain of narration.
Where will you go to investigate? Where are you going to get this information from?
I need to know whether it's authentic. So
how are you going to verify that?
Is it in the Yusuf Ali?
How are you going to verify that, Jason?
I'll investigate it in.
Yeah, what's your methodology? What's your methodology to investigate?
Well, I'd use your scholarship if you want to do that.
And it's been done. And it's been done on that.
I've read the Islamic Awareness. It's out of date. It's 2014.
So Jason, the scholarship on it has been already done and dusted. What books have you read about the scholarship? Tell me.
I've been on Islamic Awareness.
What have you read, Jason, in terms of the scholarship, Jason?
And it's 2014.
Jason, what scholarship have you read on the subject?
Why are you getting upset?
I'm not. I'm asking you a question. What scholarship have you read?
I've allowed you to talk.
What scholarship have you studied, Jason?
Primary scholarship. I'm reading the Quran manuscripts here, looking at what you're saying. Your websites, your documentation.
What scholarship have you studied in relation to the?
You showed me Islamic Awareness last week, so I looked at Islamic Awareness, and it's out of date.
So you looked at a website.
Your website that you showed me.
Does it say that the Quran is corrupt on that website?
I've just investigated it, and I found it here.
Does it say that the Quran is corrupt on that website?
In fact, but can I speak?
No, I'm asking you a question. Does it confirm that the Quran is corrupted, or does it confirm preservation?
I've just given you the word.
Answer the question, Jason.
Let me get you the word. Pisaref.
Answer the question, Jason.
Pisaref made an ink indentation on that manuscript, and some say he changed it or not. I'm saying why isn't there more information on things like that? That's all I'm saying.
Jason, the website that you've been on, does it confirm preservation or does it confirm corruption?
For that website, it's out of date. Its scholarship is not as deep as it should be.
Jason, what you're doing? Sorry, one sec, guys. Sorry, Jason.
It's not as honest as you make it out to be.
Jason, apart from attacking the man, you need to apart from attacking the man, because what you're saying is the website's out of date. Okay, that's what you're saying. This website is out of date. The information you have to look at the information on the website. It's providing you Quranic manuscripts from the 1st century onwards. Now you're saying that there was, I don't know, some person that you've read called Pisaref. I don't know. I'm not come across that. I've tried to look him up while you've been talking. I can't find him anywhere. He made an indentation. One second. Calm down. Jason, calm down. Yeah. You said he made an indentation on a manuscript. I mean, that means you're saying that. Hang on a sec. 1 second. I'm using your word.
I'll tell you the background of it. He couldn't read it, so he wrote on it.
Jason,
and he made mistakes.
Down. Jason,
he made mistakes.
Jason, calm down. You're saying he made an indentation on the manuscript, and then you're making the allegation. Some say that he changed the Quran because you couldn't read it. That's what you're saying, right?
He made mistakes.
It's very easy. You have an easy job now. You have a very easy job. All you need to do, get that manuscript, yeah, because it's there, right? You saw it on this website, right? You said you were reading the Arabic You said you were reading the Arabic manuscript, or you weren't. You said you were reading the manuscripts. They're going to be in Arabic, and you just said
they're telling me what the issues are, and I'm listening to whether it's whoever's
you're
written
claiming.
the article.
Sorry, Jason. You know what it is? You've just said a name, and you're making an allegation from the name. I haven't seen anything actually that says there are any issues. So you're saying
the first manuscript.
You're saying,
and there is issues with that Quran. Major
you're
issues.
Saying, hang on a sec, Jason. I'm giving you a way to prove Islam, the manuscripts to be false. I'm giving you a way.
I'll read it now.
So you're saying that there was a person who made an indentation on a manuscript, and he may have, and therefore he may have changed it. And some are saying that he's changed it. It's easy. It's very easy now for you, because now you have evidence of a changed Quran that everyone accepts. It's very easy for you. All you have to do is get that manuscript and get another manuscript and say these are different manuscripts, and you accept them both. Which one is right? It's very easy to do.
And the top copy. The top copy was
just 1 second, Jason.
Sorry,
I'm on the website. I'm on the website. Just explain to me. I'm on the Quranic manuscripts. I've just clicked that. Just tell me what line I'm supposed to be looking at to find this name.
It's the first one.
Yeah.
It's the Tashkent manuscript. Tashkent, yeah. It's the first manuscript on there, and then if you go up. Where
is that, Jason?
On the history of manuscript, yeah.
Yeah, the Tashkent. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. And then if you go down to number 11, he did the photographic process after attempting carefully to retrace the text of the folios, where the writing had been almost obliterated by the hands of the faithful stroking the pages. It has since been recognized that Pisaref re-inking of the text in the dulled folios resulted in many mistakes. These false restorations of the original text have caused scholars to handle this manuscript with caution. The charges of deliberate changing the text are not based on sound grounds and have never been substantiated. I never said I wasn't. What I was saying is there's issues there that he wrote over it, and some scholars there are saying.
So Jason, you want to read that line again that you quickly changed the subject of?
Yeah, no.
Shall I read it for you? Shall I read the line?
I'm happy for you to read it. I'm happy.
Yeah, it says the charges. I'll read it to you. This is what you said before you quickly moved on. The charges of deliberate changing of the text are not based upon sound grounds, have never been substantiated.
Yeah, the issue is you've got to be careful there, Dr. Imran. It's deliberate changes. He didn't mean to change it, but he did change it. It's not, the issue there is deliberate.
No, Jason,
you're not understanding the language there properly.
No, Jason, deliberate, no, you're not understanding. Does deliberate mean he didn't mean to?
I've actually checked it with Muslim scholars as well. I've gone to all the pages and I've checked it. And the issue is there were changes in his writing.
Jason, you're not even, Jason.
But
you said,
I'll tell you the scholarship behind that line. Because
1 second. You're not listening. What happened? Did you mute yourself?
No, I've muted Jason because Jason was complaining that he's not able to talk. Now, when you're addressing the point specifically to what the website is saying and how it seems to suggest something very different from what Jason was claiming, and now that it's become uncomfortable for Jason to hear that, he's now constantly interjecting. So that's why I've silenced you, Jason. But Imran, make your point, and then Jason, you will get a chance to come back. Right.
Okay, so the point that Jason said Jason said it was deliberate. It wasn't deliberate changes. No, it was deliberate changes, but he didn't mean it, which are opposite things. So either he changed it on purpose, or he didn't change it on purpose.
Right.
And it quite clearly says, and it references this here in the text, the charges of deliberate changes of the text are not based on sound grounds and have never been substantiated. And all you have to do is something very straightforward. It's very straightforward. Take this copy, compare it to any other copy of the Quran in the same places where you allege there are changes, and show there are differences.
Yeah. Can I finish? Can I say
so no, because no, 1 second, Jay, because I haven't finished my point. And then it goes back to our same issue that we have with the way the Quran is preserved. It's not like the Bible. If theoretically you found two manuscripts that claim to be Quran that were different, you claimed it, that these, but this text manuscript says Quran and this one says it's Quran, and they weren't the same. They were differences in it. What does that mean for Muslims? Alhamdulillah. Hafiz Saab, come here, please. Could you read these? Hafiz will read Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yeah, this is Quran. Oh, there's a mistake here. Oh, there's a change here. This is not Quran. We would put that away and say, wonderful attempt someone made there. They made some mistakes in it. They might have changed it. It's not Quran. We put it away. So, and why is that? Because we have an existing oral transmission from the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, when the Quran was being revealed by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and being written down by the companions, to now. We have that oral transmission. So what you're doing, what you've done is inadvertently, and I'm going to assume that you didn't mean it, and it was deliberate. What you did was you are trying to put a biblical problem in terms of Quran of their manuscripts, i.e., you can have two different manuscripts and you have to decide which is right, onto the Quran. We don't have this problem. So if there was a Quran that had something written in it that the Hafiz knows this is not part of the Quran, it would not be considered part of the Quran. We would just put it away. So do you understand? We have a different way of weighing up any text that's there.
Okay. I understand. Can I just reply now, please? If you read this again, it says, he did this by photographic process after attempting carefully to retrace the text of the folios, where the writing had been almost obliterated by the hands of the faithful stroke of the pages. There's since been recognized that Pisaref, re-inking of the text in the dulled folios resulted in many mistakes. So there were mistakes. These foster restorations of the original text have caused scholars to handle the manuscripts with caution. So they handle it with miscaution, but they do not charge him for deliberate changing. He didn't deliberately try to change the text, but he accidentally changed the text. That's the context. And I checked it with Jeffries, who's a Christian scholar, and he said, and this backs you up, he said that this guy, Pisaref, it was not intentional, but there were mistakes that he made in trying to restore that text. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so this 19th century European is trying to. Hang on a sec. No. He can't. And I'll tell you why, Jason. How did they know there were mistakes?
Yeah, because you've had to use other manuscripts to compare it.
No. How did they know there were mistakes?
It doesn't say oral tradition there.
No, I'm asking. It doesn't say anything there. I'm asking you. How do you know? How do they know there were mistakes?
You tell me.
I've told you already, and you know the answer, which is why you're not answering. So I'm going to give you one more chance, Jason. How did they know? How did they know there were mistakes?
From what I'm reading there, they know there's mistakes from that context of that article, from looking at other manuscripts.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason, for your honesty. And I take that with my tongue in my cheek, because I'm really surprised at you. It's very clear. We've already explained to you that that we have two mechanisms of preservation. So all you would need to do is because they knew there were mistakes. So first of all, if there were any mistakes in any manuscript, we already know that this is not part of Quran. Why? Because we have an oral transmission, and there are other manuscripts that would verify that this has been written down and this is not the way. So you've answered the question for us. Thank you very much indeed. And you're doing the same thing again. I give you oral tradition, and you're rejecting it in your very premises and the answers you're putting forward. So what I'm going to say to you, Jason, is thank you very much, and thank you for further clarifying that Muslims were able to verify that there were mistakes in somebody's attempt to re-ink a manuscript because they have another mechanism for establishing preservation. Thank you very much.
It should be put in Qurans. You should put it in the Quran so we know the information.
Put what in the Quran?
You know what's sad, Jason?
You don't put the information in the Quran.
Put what in Qurans? No, put what in Qurans?
You see, we were able to verify that text is not correct, right? So verification is needed.
No, Jason, yeah. 1 second. No, 1 second. No, hang on a second. 1 second. Jason, again, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The Quran, that manuscript was around from the 1st century or 2nd century, yeah, 8th century definitely. This is on the website. The text has become faint. So some European called Pisarev.
Yeah. I like the name Pisarev.
Pisarev. Some European in 1905
changed the text.
1905.
Yeah.
Makes some mistakes when he's re-inking. He's trying to fill in the ink. Yeah, he makes a mistake. Yeah, and you're saying that this is evidence of Quranic corruption.
No, I've not said that.
Hang on a sec. Hang on a sec. When the scholars themselves said, "Oh, he's made mistakes."
I
asked you how.
No.
Hang on a sec. I asked you how, and you refused. You refused to admit that the oral tradition plays a role in this.
No, guys.
Now, Jason, to be honest with you, Jason, 1 second. Jason. In the height of the dishonesty that you're presenting in this insincerity, I don't think this is a fruitful discussion to carry forward. What we would not write down in any Quran that a 19th century European made some mistakes in a manuscript when trying to correct some ink that had faded. Why do we do that?
My friend, I've not.
Why would we do
in
that?
This video, I've not even brought up the issue of the corruption of the Quran. I'm just on about verification. That we need to verify.
No, you haven't. Things. You're not on about verification.
That's what I'm on about.
No, you're not talking about verification.
And transparency, letting the Islamic public know about these things. About Pisarev.
Jason, do you remember?
Why don't we know about Pisarev?
Jason, 1 second.
Pisarev.
Because Pisarev is a 19th century European.
Yes,
but Imran. The only reason you know about Pisarev,
I love you.
The only reason Jason knows about Pisarev is because he went on an Islamic website that gave him that information, and now he's saying, "Why don't Muslims talk about this?" You got it precisely from an Islamic website.
Abbas, let me just tell you something.
Come up with this information, Jason. You know what it is? I tell you what's very disheartening for me, really, and somewhat upsetting as well, is that you thought you came on here with some sort of an argument, and it's actually been not only shambolic, but it's an embarrassment. And as an evangelical Christian trying to preach the truth, is this really what you have?
My friend, that's
it's embarrassing, Jason.
Let me, Abbas,
both of you guys.
Jason, sorry, forgive me for interrupting. Abbas, remember I said, sorry, Jason, 1 second. Abbas, you remember I said to you that one of the things that Christian scholars do, and I'm not going to put this on Jason, sorry, Jason, I'm talking about in the third person, was that there's this conspiracy amongst the Muslims to hide the information and not let everyone know.
Yeah.
And I said out of generosity that I'm not going to put it on him. And this is exactly what you've done, Jason. So number one, it said, Pisarev was a 19th century European who was trying to fill in the ink on this manuscript, and he made some mistakes. Muslims knew, it says the scholars knew straight away, because we have other mechanisms of preservation. So not only other manuscripts, but we have the oral transmission. And you're saying, why aren't you writing it down in your manuscripts that there's some European person called Pisarev made a mistake when trying to correct the Quran, and then from that you get this is the casting aspersions upon the Muslim. Oh, you're hiding this information from the masses. So let me give another difference between the Bible and the Quran, just to hammer this point home. The Quran from the beginning has been in the hands of the people. It was received by the Prophet, peace be upon him, from the angel Gabriel. He recited it to his companions and they wrote it down, and it was disseminated. It was been in the hands of the people from the beginning. The Bible was in the hands of the elite. When it was first translated into English in 1544, the person who did it, I can't remember his name now, it's gone off the top of my head. He was hung for doing this translation. You know, you're aware of this, yeah?
William Tyndale.
What happened to him?
He was hung and then burnt. He was
hung and burnt for what? Translating the Bible into English.
Yeah.
Now compare the difference now. And why was that? Because this allowed then people access to the text, and they could see things that people were telling them that weren't correct. For the Muslims, it's been the opposite way around. From the beginning, the text has been in the hands of the people. Even when the Quran was compiled, the people were brought together as witnesses, and they were bringing manuscripts as well as their memories, and witnessing that we wrote this down in the presence of the Prophet, peace be upon him, to allow the compilation of the Quran. So our histories are chalk and cheese, Jason, and whatever you were attempting to do in the nice way that you did do it, I don't think it worked.
But guys, I feel like, to be honest, I do feel like, you know, that we should just stick to the argument and not say things like shambolic or I'm not insincere, I was being sincere. And the only thing I'm just learning about, I'm investigating like a journalist, because you quoted me Islamic awareness. So I've been on Islamic awareness. I've only been on 3 manuscripts, and I'm going through all the manuscripts, and I just have questions. And I generally didn't understand about the dating system. I didn't understand about certain things. And I genuinely have an issue, and I'm not being funny about this issue of verification. I know you said you've explained it, but I don't think that.
Okay, let me explain it to one.
When a Bible's published, can I just finish?
I'm going to explain it to you one more time.
No. Can I just finish this and then right? I got what you said, but when we publish King James or NIV, we know where the sources have come from. And all I'm saying is, whenever you publish a Quran, we should know where the sources come from, and why you've rejected Pisaref, or why have you accepted the top copy, or whatever, why you've accepted this oral tradition, and we should have it in the Qurans, and you don't have it, and so you are hiding information from the general Islamic public.
That's the conspiracy theory. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. So just before you leave, I'm going to explain it to you one more time. The verification method, and I'm going to just answer your question. The verification method is the oral transmission.
But it's a tautology.
It's not a tautology. It's not a tautology. It's not a tautology. It's not a tautology at all. What we're telling you is that the Quran has been memorized, and the memorization process, you are given permission to teach forward. And this verification it's like a certification. It's like going to university and getting your diploma, and then given the permission to teach forward this level. And most people who did that were the master. You had to get to a master level before you could teach forward. Now we have certification of the reciters, learning from their teacher the recitations, going back through all the generations named to the Prophet, peace be upon him, for millions of people. So we have this, and now that is verification. There is no other stronger form of verification for any historical fact on the planet.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but this is what you're doing.
The Bible. Now the reason.
Let me just make a point.
No, Jason, this has been going on for over an hour.
Oh gosh.
And quite frankly, Jason, the question has been answered in multiple ways. Now, I'm sorry for you that you don't seem to understand the answers, and you just go back to your original, prerequisite and just regurgitate the same question over and over again, expecting a different answer. But that's not going to happen, Jason. Thank you for coming on, and we might get you on again in the future. But you have a lovely evening.
I just feel you're saying that you've got all this verification here, but you don't put it in your published Qurans. That's the problem.
Is you've got too many feelings and not enough logic or reason. You've got too many feelings.
You're hiding something.
Yeah, Jason, you've got too many feelings, and you haven't got enough logic or reason to establish your point, and that's the problem. But thank you for coming on, and we might get you on in the future. Howard, we're going to get you on next. Just give me a quick wave. You can leave the camera on, Howard, or you can turn it off. Howard and Louisa, welcome to the stream. You're just muted. I don't be, your microphone might not be connected or selected. Just be careful. No, we still can't hear you. I can obviously see your lips moving, but no sound is coming through. So try to address that, and we'll get you back on. Try to address that, and we'll get you back on short.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, but you're echoing.
Let's try one more time with this.
Because what's happening is possibly the YouTube video is playing and it's a little bit delayed, so it's echoing the sound. So you need to just shut off the YouTube video and just have the StreamYard on. Can you try talking now? No, still can't hear you. So Howard, just try to sort that out and we'll get you on shortly. Mahesh, we're going to get you on next. Just give me a quick wave. All right, Mahesh. Mahesh, we're probably not going to give you a lot of time because you're probably going to argue the same thing again that you've been arguing on DawahWise and here previously. But please do go ahead.
Hey, hi guys. I just wanted to, like you guessed, I had a follow-up question regarding our discussion about morality. So last time we discussed about, so my argument basically was that I see two categories of morality. The first where, the reasonable people can make an objective judgment about, like, killing an innocent, for example. But there is this second category of morality where the issues are not so clear. There is like shades of gray. And this is the second category.
Mahesh, why don't you make the argument for objective morality for killing somebody? Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Nazam. How are you doing? You okay?
Alaikum, Nazam.
Good, thank you. Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Mahesh, go ahead. Make the argument for objective morality for killing somebody.
So, Abbas, we have already discussed that in our last stream.
No, you just made a claim. You made a claim that you can make an objective argument for killing somebody without the concept of morality coming from the creator. So please go ahead. The floor is yours. Make your argument. How do you prove objective morality when it comes to killing somebody with the absence of God? Please go ahead.
I never said that I can do that. My logic was that when reasonable people come together, they can form a consensus over what is right and what is wrong.
Right?
It is objective in a sense that the reasonable people can make an objective judgment about. But beyond that,
Mahesh, when you use the word objective, and you at the same token you say a group of people can decide, that becomes not objective. You realize that they're contradictory terms. You realize that, don't you?
Yeah. So that's why I said
that would be a fallacious argument. You can't make that argument. You can't say a circle is round and it is square, because it cannot be round and square. So either it is objective or it is subjective. If a group of people make a decision on a matter, this automatically becomes subjective, not objective. Now, you claim that we can make objective claims about murdering somebody, killing somebody. I want to hear your argument. What is your argument that it's objective? Please go ahead.
So, Abbas, when I said that, I also used the term reasonable people.
Is it objective because reasonable people make a decision?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Is it objective because reasonable people make a decision?
Yes.
No. What are you talking about? Are we speaking in English? Are we speaking in English or are we speaking in some other language?
That was the argumentation which was given by you guys in the last stream.
What does objective mean?
Objective means it's true no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. It's an absolute. It's an axiom. It basically can't be any other way, right?
Yes.
So can a group of reasonable people come up with a scenario where murdering or killing somebody would be acceptable?
So Abbas, I would highly recommend you that you
could they do that, Mahesh? That's the question to you. Could they do that? Could a group of
But in that case, can we call them?
could a group of reasonable people come up with a scenario where it would actually be good to kill somebody? Could they do that?
An innocent person, you mean? Is the person innocent?
Kill somebody. To kill somebody.
Is that person innocent?
Well, even their innocence is going to be now subjective or objective, isn't it? It can't be objective if they come up with a decision
Abbas,
based upon themselves, right?
So you are now making an argument for my case.
Mahesh, you said in your initial statement that we can make an objective truth or reality about killing somebody. I'm wanting to hear your argument for how it becomes objective, because a reasonable group of people or people who are reasonable come up with that conclusion. So I'm asking you again. Make your point, Mahesh, because you haven't made the point yet.
I have made my point, Abbas. So when I said the statement, this was what you guys told me during our last stream. So that's why I'm asking you to revisit our discussion in the last stream, because when I asked you, when I raised this question about killing an innocent, you guys asked me about my opinion, whether I think if it is objective right or wrong to kill an innocent. And when I said yes, then you guys told me that then that becomes objective. So this is the logic.
No, we did not, Mahesh. We could never
clarify that. Yeah. So let me clarify, Mahesh, because it might be. So first of all, I just want to, because I want to understand you, because Mahesh, you come on and we really just go around in circles, because the discussion doesn't go anywhere, because when you try and make your points, we seem to have different understandings of even the words that we're using. Yeah. So before I make because even in this phraseology for this setup that you've put in terms of the moral position on a group of people getting together, it raises lots of issues in terms of, do you understand what you mean in terms of establishing objective morality? So what is the argument? I want to understand you. So I'm going to ask you a question so you can, as a clarification, you can clarify to me what your position is. So
so let
me ask the question so then you can clarify for me. This is my misunderstanding. So the question will help you.
Okay.
So you seem to be saying that a group of people can get together, and you've used the term reasonable, and all of these problems are problematic. Reasonable people get together, so you're not talking about everyone. Reasonable people can get together, and they can come to objective morals. Is that what you're saying?
So just to give you the context of my argument, my original argument, when I started this discussion with you guys initially, was that morality is not objective, it is subjective. That was my original argument. But during the course of our discussion last time, you guys asked me personally what I think about killing an innocent, and then I said that I think it is wrong. So based on that, you guys concluded that killing an innocent is objectively wrong, because
No.
So what was your reasoning behind?
Carry on. I'll clarify that point, but that's fine. You carry on. Make
cool.
your position clear.
Yeah, but now I think you have added one more point, which is that you have also added God into the equation here. So you guys are now saying that because God says that it's wrong, it's objectively wrong. So I'm a bit confused. So yeah, Imran, if you can clarify that would be grateful.
So this is the thing. So if your position is that morality is subjective, yeah, this is what you believe. Do you still hold that position?
Morality is subjective. Yep, that's my position. That was my original position. Yeah.
Okay. So then the point that we made last time, and you missed out sort of just a really important word, is we said, is it ever okay to kill an innocent person? Although you use the word ever. Okay, so that means in any circumstance, is it okay to kill an innocent person? Now, for someone who says that morals are subjective, like this is the position you claim to hold, the answer to that question is yes. There is a circumstance in which killing an innocent person would be moral. Why? Because morality is subjective. In my view, it may not be that it's okay, but there may be a circumstance where a view is found that killing an innocent person is okay. Why? Because morality is subjective. That's what it means. It's not set. Yeah. Now, when you said in response to the question, is it ever moral to kill an innocent person? When you answered no, that confirms that therefore that killing of an innocent person is always wrong, and therefore that becomes a objective moral. So you understand the position. I'm just trying to make a distinction between them. Now, you can we haven't brought God into this yet. There's nothing else. We do in our position, in our foundations for our position. Yes, we do appeal to God, but this is not where we are at the moment. We're at a step before that. So clarify for me: do you think that it is ever okay to kill an innocent person, and how that relates to your idea that morality is subjective?
So, Imran, the answer really depends on the situation and the context. So, if you can, add a little bit color to under what circumstances, you're asking.
So, Mahesh, what you're asking me to do is now list all of the possible ways in which an innocent person could be killed, and what the
you can give me an example.
Yeah, this is the problem. So this is a problem. So I can give you an example where you'd think, actually, no, in that example, it's not right. And then I could give you another example, and you say, actually, in that example, it's not right either to kill an innocent person. And then we could go down this route. And there may be at some point where I give an example, and you might say, oh, well, that's okay. Or let's change this now. If anyone else were to say it's okay to kill an innocent person, then that would be, then you can say, look, your position should be that as someone who's a moral subjectivist, you think morality is subjective. Your position should be no thing is ever always completely moral or immoral. Why? Because morality itself is subjective. So it's circumstance dependent. It's individual dependent.
Yes.
And but your answer to the question wasn't that. Your answer to the question was it's never innocent. So it's never okay to kill an innocent person. So just clarify for me what the position is, and then we can work from there.
Yeah, I think when we discussed last time, maybe I, as you said, I did not paid attention to the word ever in that.
Yeah.
So that might have happened, right? But my point still stands, because what my argument is that there are some issues which are black and white, and you can make some judgment about that, subjective or objective. We can discuss about that. But there are some issues which are gray, which are not so black and white, right? So, like, for example, I have heard that, from many Muslims that they think that marrying someone who is not Muslim is haram. So it's not clear to me why that is. Or, I have heard from some people that painting is haram, like drawing a painting of an animate being is haram. So, I've heard things like this. So it's not clear to me
what
why.
Does that have to, Mahesh, you're not answering the question.
Mm-hmm.
You're not answering the question with all respect, Mahesh. What you're doing is they call it you get into the weeds, and what you need to do is you stand back and look at the garden. Yeah, because if you get into the weeds, you're never going to see the flowers and the shape of the trees, and my garden. You won't see the beauty of the whole thing. So the point here is this: irrespective of the example provided.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now phrasing it for you. Irrespective of the example provided, someone who believes that morality is subjective, they can never say that any act is wrong or right, because that's what subjective means. Now, what that means, the practical application of that is, you can have your personal views, and someone else could have their personal views, and those views could be diametrically opposed. You could say it's never okay to kill an innocent person, and there could be another person standing next to you who's also a moral subjectivist who thinks, actually, it's okay to kill an innocent person. That I can think of many circumstances that I feel that is okay to kill an innocent person. And then the question comes, how are you going to, in your interaction with this other person in this society that you're living in, how are you going to convince the other person of your position, or vice versa?
So
that's the question. So we're talking about the practical application of your position in a society, and not just some theoretical thing where anyone can sit down and say, everything's subjective. It could be right, it could be wrong, depending on who and circumstances. how would you apply that in the real world? So give me your thoughts on this, Mahesh. I'm actually trying to have a conversation as opposed to just getting stuck in lots of examples that are not necessary.
Sure. So that's why when we look into our reality, what we see is this is what happens, right? Different people have different opinions about different issues, and that's why at least in democratic countries, we have discussions and debates about different issues because these different people have different subjective opinions about different things, right? So in a scenario that you mentioned, if a group of two people have different opinions, then we can go through some kind of a democratic process and establish by law what should be followed. And by no stretch of imagination, I'm trying to say that it's a perfect process. It has its flaws, but because morality is subjective, that is the consequence of why we have to follow this process. If morality was objective, we didn't have to have this process in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So this is why I was saying that actually having people discussing something being right and wrong already proves that that's something that can never be either way because they're discussing it to start with. Something that is clearly wrong you wouldn't have to discuss it really. That would be clear.
Exactly.
So what the answer that you've put forward, Mahesh, is majority rules.
But there are some caveats, Imran. It's not that simple. You're we are simplifying it. It's not. There are a lot of nuances to it.
So what are the caveats? Explain to me the caveats.
So the first caveat being that situations change, right? And people have to, or societies need to adopt themselves to the changing circumstances and changing change themselves according to the changes in the socio-economic conditions. And under those conditions, the opinions of people can change, right? So this is the first caveat. The caveat being that once we have a decision about something, that decision not be everlasting, right? So it might change according to the time.
Okay, so that's the first caveat. Any other caveats? I'm writing these down because I want to respond to them. But
absolutely. And as you said, right? So majority rules, right? But there are many examples in the past where majority have made wrong decisions, right? That has happened. But the beauty of this process is that when people realize their mistakes, they can again come together and kind of amend, or kind of try to rectify the mistakes that they have made, and then they come up with the new solutions that can rectify the wrong decisions that they made in the past. So this is the second caveat, which is that even if the majority makes a decision, that does not.
Sure, I understand. Your second caveat is actually the first caveat. What you've said is majority rules, and if the circumstances change, just want to give an example. Because what you said was in the beginning, you said, look, if the people get together and decide, then that's what they've decided. Now they can make mistakes and they can get together again and decide, and they can change, and it's not set in stone and things can change. So what you're saying to me again is the majority rules. It's just that they've ruled something differently this time.
So not necessarily. For example,
your caveat 1 and 2 are the same caveats. Can you give an additional caveat apart from the majority rules?
This is the two that I can think of right now.
Okay, so let me give you, and I'll give you 2 examples. Let me just, I'll try. If it becomes too long, we'll stick with one. Okay, so in the 1930s, a society decided to purge from their country any person of a particular religious and ethnic background. Known as the Holocaust, and that was something that they decided as a society, and it was done and it was carried out. But that's a commonly cited one. So I'm going to give you something today, right? Something that's happening now.
Okay.
China has 2 million Muslims in camps. Okay.
Yes.
In the Xinjiang province, and what's happened is, as a society, they've decided that this is something that is required. We need to eliminate a threat, and whatever threat they're putting forward, whatever justification they have, they've decided to do this. And they've put they're interning these people. They're not allowing them to practice any of their religion, forcing them to eat, for example, in Ramadan. not letting them pray, preventing children from studying, preventing the passing on of their religion, and their language, their culture. And so they've decided this as a society. First question is, do you think that's right or wrong?
So my own subjective view is that that's wrong.
Okay, so the question I'm asking you is, how are you going to communicate that fact to someone in the Chinese government who is ruling the people?
I mean, so your point is that it's right from my side, but since they have their own subjective view, I cannot really tell them that, right? That's your point.
So yeah, so let me iron that point out. So what I'm saying is that you, as someone who believes in subjective morality, are not in a position, because you have no foundation apart from majority rules from the caveats you've given. You have no foundation to say anyone else, any other society that does anything else is right or wrong. And even on an individual level, if we come down to the individual, you don't have any position to say anyone else is right or wrong.
And what is your foundation?
That's a good question. But first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and pray very quickly, maybe a few minutes, and I'm going to let Brother Abbas go in. But I want you to understand and accept that there is no foundation in your position other than the fact that majority rules. Do you agree with that?
I never claimed that I had any foundation besides these. I never claimed that.
Great. So that's the whole point here, Mahesh. So if you have no foundation for your morality, then it's essentially concocted by convenience. And this is why it changes. If a society at one point decides to say, we're going to kill all these Jews, and that's their societal decision, and they carry that out, you have no basis upon which to rely to tell them that they're wrong. That would convince them, because they can say, look, this is our majority's rule. And the same for China now. You would have no position to tell China that what they're doing is right or wrong, because they're deciding it from their own subjective societal perspective. Now, I'm going to be back in a few minutes, but I want you to hold that thought, and then we can go on, and I want to explain why you think living in that way is a reasonable thing. Until I return, Abbas, I
don't think we're going to be talking to Mahesh
I'll be back as soon as I can.
That long that you're going to go and pray and come back, and he's still going to be on. But Mahesh, so basically, you've accepted that, therefore, societal conformity or coalescing together cannot arrive at morality within certainty, within a form of objectivity, right? You agree to that, right?
I mean, societal consensus can sometimes make mistakes, but that does not mean that they always make mistakes.
Mahesh, that was not the question. And if you're not going to be honest about answering things properly, I'm going to just get the next guest on. You've accepted social consensus cannot reach objective morality. Do you accept that?
So, Abbas, you're asking this question to someone who does not believe in objective morality. So my stand is that...
The answer to that is yes, then, isn't it, Mahesh?
Answer to what is this exactly?
That you can't reach certainty in terms of morality, objectivity, with objective truth about moral issues.
Because I do not believe in objective morality, yes, that's true.
Okay, so you can't. Now, if there was a creator of the heavens and the earth, and I emphasize the point if, and as he is described to be all-knowing and all-knowledgeable, could he come up with objective morality if he existed?
Not necessarily. I mean, he might, but not necessarily.
So being all-intelligent and being all-knowing, you're saying that there would be gaps in that thing's understanding when it came to morality. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, when we look around what's happening around us, we see that
Mahesh.
But Abbas, let me complete my point.
No,
right?
Because it's a silly argument you're making, Mahesh.
No, it's not a silly argument.
It is silly because you're saying because I tell you why why it's silly. I'll tell you why it's silly. You said when we start looking at things, You've already accepted that the we is subjective and not objective. So it is a silly argument because the conclusion of we will only be subjective. And I've just said to you something with a complete knowledge of everything, i.e. no gaps in knowledge, no gaps or limitations in any understanding of any concept. Could that being come up with objective morality? That's my question to you.
I mean, if the creator is really the way you described, then yes, your statement is right.
Well, that's it. So we agree then. We agree on that point then. We agree that morality cannot occur objectively from social consensus, i.e. the limitations of human beings, the biases of human beings, the spectacles through which human beings see the world. However, if God exists and God is all-knowing and all-powerful, therefore, and has no gaps in his knowledge, and his attributes are perfect in every way, therefore, God could only be the route to objective truth and objective morality. So we're in agreement to that, Mahesh. Now, the point is, you need to study why we believe God exists, and you need to study why we believe the Quran is a miracle of God. And that's another conversation altogether.
No, Abbas, but you're missing the main point.
And if you're interested in that conversation, we can have that at a later
Abbas,
date.
you have missed a very important point, if I can make that point. Okay? So my point is, if God is all knowledgeable, all powerful, as you claim, right, then why does he allow something to happen which is wrong in this world? Why does he do that? He could have easily prevented that.
Mahesh, you made another fallacious argument there. Because you're assuming that our judgment of wrong and right is objective, but you've already accepted that it is not.
So do you believe that no innocent get killed in this world?
Mahesh, did you hear what I just said?
But your argument seems fallacious to me, Abbas, because do you believe that women get raped in this world? Do you believe that happens?
Mahesh,
yes or no, Abbas?
Mahesh, let's not make emotional arguments. Let's deal
with
not
emotional. It's a logical argument.
It's not logical at all. It's not logical at all. It's emotional. I'll tell you why it's emotional. It's emotional because the premises have to lead to a conclusion of certainty. Your premises do not result in a conclusion of certainty because they are based upon subjectivity and not objectivity in their argument. So you're raising premises that are subjective and you're trying to arrive at an objective reality, and it doesn't work. That's why it's fallacious. Anyway, I think we're flogging a dead horse here. Nazam,
what I take away from this
Mahesh, just hold on a second. Nazam, would you like to add anything to this? You're muted, Nazam.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, you're good. I think most people are probably good. Mahesh, we'll invite you on next time, but thank you for coming on.
So yeah, thank you, Abbas. Though, so one thing which I have taken away from this conversation is that you think that raping a woman is not wrong. That's what I've understood.
Okay, Mahesh, you know what it is? If you've understood that, then you have a really twisted, vulgar, and
not me,
and
not
very
me.
vulgar, and very. I'm going to mute you because I'm answering your claim. If you've come away with the conclusion that I somehow have condoned or accepted raping of a woman is acceptable, then quite frankly, you're a twisted, vulgar individual, and I'm not interested to have conversations with people like yourself if that's the conclusion that you arrived at. Unfortunately, if those are the sort of conclusions that you're arriving at, you need psychological help. This stream, and I'm not going to be able to help you. You need to get some sort of serious counseling to sort that type of problem out. And I can't help you with that, Mahesh. And this is the problem, Mahesh. You see, when logic and reason defeat the batil, the falsehood, the nonsense, you have to come up with these sort of ad hominem, personal, vulgar accusations. And it's shameful, quite frankly. I would expect more from you, Mahesh, really. So I would have thanked Mahesh for coming on the stream, but I'm not going to thank him now because I think that's just damn right, vulgar and disrespectful. I'm going to get Howard on again, and hopefully he's managed to sort out his sound, and we'll hopefully have a nice conversation. Howard and Louisa, welcome to the stream.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Okay, that's
Yes.
lovely. We can actually finally hear you loud and clear. So
you.
Howard, how are you doing? You all right?
Alhamdulillah. Very good. Thank you, Abbas. Thank you for having us back on.
Are you still in sunny Spain, or are you elsewhere now?
We are indeed. We're in sunny Spain with the air conditioning on.
Yeah, well,
Did you turn off there?
Yeah, well, we need air conditioning here because it was like over 30 degrees on some of our days. And as you know, in England, our houses here are not really very well equipped for the heat. But Howard and Louisa, welcome to the stream. What do you have in store for us today? Please go ahead.
Shukran. I was just hoping to continue a little bit of our previous conversation about why I and also my girlfriend Louisa believe that Muslims should take the Quran literally, because we've been doing experiments with our God-given senses. We've been performing natural sciences, and natural sciences, reproducible observations, match over 50 verses in the Quran that conflict with the globe model and outer space. We believe that Shaitan is behind the United Nations, and the United Nations are behind all of the space agencies. And we've been, me especially, I've been doing activism for 7 years. And Louisa's been witness in person, and she's also seen many of my videos from doing activism, that I've been helping atheists see there's a satanic deception. And it's all through media. It's all mind control, using scientism to cause us to feel that the Creator is, we're sharing the Creator with an infinite universe, infinite space, and that we're this small and that he's got to be far away, where the Quran clearly says in 8 verses that earth is contained and that he sits above in his throne. There's 18 verses that I found, maybe more, but 18 verses that say that earth is level, spread out like a carpet, a rug, a cradling, and there's 7 heavens, and likewise for earth, which tell me that earth isn't flat, not a 2D shape. So I thank the Quran for that. I'm not a flat earther, and neither is Louisa anymore. We believe that earth is magical. It's maybe 7D, 7th dimensional, and that's what we believe the Quran is hinting at. And also that there's 22 verses that say that earth is stationary and geocentric, because it specifically talks about the sun and the earth, the moon orbiting us, swimming, subjected to us, to earth. It never mentions earth moving. It actually says that earth is firm. So we believe what the Quran says in these 50 verses. And we also believe that Christians should take the Bible literal. In over 200 verses, it says exactly the same. It doesn't say flat. It talks about it being level, stationary, geocentric, exactly what natural sciences demonstrate when we do real scientific experiments. So we're here to tell you and all of your audience that we believe the best type of activism, which I would say dawah, or to a Christian evangelism, is to promote natural sciences and help debunk Shaitan's misconceptions, because we are certain that the space agencies, which are all connected to the United Nations, which are also in control of many other organizations that are up to no good, they're deceiving us, and that's fueling atheism. And I'll quickly throw in before I end. I've been challenging atheist YouTubers like Matthew Dillahunty and Aaron Ra and many others, and none of them want to debate me. It's not because I'm smarter than them. It's because they don't want to deal with the stuff that I can bring, because I'm saying that without a globe model, all of the other contingent theories like outer space being physical instead of metaphysical, and for only God can see the whole of the unseen of the heavens and the unseen of earth. So this tells me that NASA is lying, because we've never seen a real photo of England. We've never seen a real photo of Spain every time from outer space, or a video. Every time we watch the weather report, there's a girl talking in front of a cartoon. The space agencies are lying. The governments are maybe connected. Maybe they're also not aware. We don't know who's exactly behind it. All we know is there's historical facts like Operation Paperclip, where Nazis were taken to America, and it's all propaganda. It's all to make us not feel so connected and have a personal relationship with the Creator.
Okay. Howard, since you've raised the point about religion, the Quran and the Bible, let's deal with the Quran and let's deal with Islam, since you've raised that point. Yes?
Shukran.
What is the most fundamental teaching of Islam, the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? What is the fundamental, most important core teaching? What was that teaching when people asked Jesus for the greatest commandment? What was that?
I would say that we should worship the Creator and not perform shirk and associate anyone or anything with the glorification of the Creator. And I believe that's what NASA is doing. They're claiming to see the Earth and to go to space, and they're not.
Believing the world is spherical or flat does not make you a disbeliever or a believer in God Almighty. Let's make that very clear. Believing the 7 dimensions of Earth or not believing in the 7 dimensions of Earth, because as you know, the exegesis from a very early on, there were people who were claiming that the Earth in fact was round, looking at the same verses of the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And there were some people who were claiming that it was flat. Okay. But so there are exegesis for both, basically. And they were both using the Quranic exegesis, right?
Yeah.
Depending on which one you accepted, did not make you a disbeliever and a follower of Satan either way, whether you believed in the flat or the spherical Earth. So my question to you was, what is the fundamental and the greatest commandment? And the greatest commandment was, that your God, your Lord is one God, as Jesus said. Same thing with the Prophet Muhammad. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing worthy of worship except Allah and Muhammadur Rasulullah, and that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of Allah. Now, my point to you is, do you believe that?
I believe in the Creator, and I believe in only glorifying the Creator. And just to say quickly, I believe the best form of worship is to help bring more people to know this fact. And by doing natural sciences and promoting natural sciences, we can debunk all of the atheist claims. And that is dawah. That is the best dawah you guys can do.
Yeah, but Howard, your opinion of what the best dawah is, or my opinion of the best dawah is irrelevant. You know why it's irrelevant?
Because it's subjective, like you were saying before, to the other person. Only God knows the objective truth. And
the best form of dawah, or the best form of learning, or the best form of practicing, or the best form of teaching is based upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has disclosed to us.
I agree.
Yes, but your opinion of that we should be talking about these things that you've mentioned, and this is the primary thing that we should be focusing on, is a subjective opinion that you've arrived at.
Fair enough, but can I reference?
But hold on, Howard. But it's not based on Quran and Hadith. It's not based upon the Quran. Neither is it based upon the Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So you saying that I take the Quran literally, i.e., I read a verse, and I then take that verse to be literal. First of all, firstly and foremostly, I presume you're doing that in the English language.
Well, yes, because I know there's about 11 verses that say that the Quran is clear for all mankind to understand.
Yeah, but Howard, that does not mean to say that it's just because it's clear for mankind to understand, that if you translate the classical Arabic into an English language, and there are several translations of the Quran, many in fact, they use a different choice of words, your limitation of not being able to access the primary sources, i.e. the language itself, the classical Arabic, means that you're already limited in terms of your interpretation, limited in your...
That means that only...
Please, Louisa, go ahead.
So does that mean that only people that speak Arabic can access the word of God truly, deeply, ultimately?
Well, logically speaking, Louisa, the people who can access anything are going to be the people who are the most educated within that particular field. And language, since the Quran is language, then the people who are going to be able to access that with the closest meaning and interpretation are going to be amongst the most knowledgeable people of both the language and the traditions of Islam and the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It's but logical.
Can I just throw a shout out to John Fontaine? I've been speaking to John Fontaine a lot, and
Lovely
also
brother.
Sharif. Yeah, and also Sharif from the Thought Adventure Project. But John Fontaine, I have to shout out because he sent me a video. We talk on Instagram, and he sent me a video of a Muslim scholar who is of the same opinion, and I've got a list of Muslim scholars, present and past, that are also of the same opinion. But I really just wanted to get back to your other point. Can I reference Surah Fussilat 41:37, where the Quran clearly states that we should not prostrate to the sun or the moon or the stars, but we should prostrate to Allah who created them. And by believing in the space agencies and all of these Jesuit priests from before that said that sun is in the middle of the solar system and that we're orbiting the sun, we're subconsciously or unconsciously performing shirk by prostrating to the sun when we are in the center, which is what the Quran clearly says in 22 verses.
Who says Muslims prostrate to the sun?
No. Everybody in the world that believes in what they're told or what they see on a television and ignore what their God-given senses perceive and ignore what the Quran says in 22 verses. It talks about the sun and the moon are subjected to us, in orbit to us. They swim above us as we see with our God-given senses. We can test. I've got 22 verses, which I'm happy to go into detail. I've even sent it you by email if you want to put it on the screen.
Before you do that, you've just defined what shirk is.
Associating others with Allah.
So giving attributes or power to something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right?
Gravity, infinite space that we can travel.
No, hold on a second. You do believe that gravity exists, right? Or you don't believe?
No, I believe. That's the word there, believe. Gravity's never been demonstrated where density, buoyancy, electrostatics can move things. We can manipulate things in experiments that are electrostatics, density, buoyancy. We cannot manipulate gravity. It is a theory and it is unnecessary if we take away this. People in Australia are upside down. We're giving glory to a scientific. Like Dr. Imran said, we should be against scientism. If it's not demonstrable, if we can't experiment, if we can't make an experiment and manipulate the independent variable, then it's a theory. And if it's a theory that we can debunk with other experiments, natural sciences, like we can prove with electrostatics, acoustic levitation, we can put an egg in water and it'll sink. If we add salt in the water, it'll float. There's so many experiments that prove density, buoyancy, electrostatics, acoustic levitation. There's no experiment that proves gravity. It is a theory that supports a globe model that supports that we can go into outer space, and outer space is physical, where it's really metaphysical, and only the creator can see the unseen of the earth. So that proves that NASA's lying. And just quickly, the Quran clearly says we're contained and that we can't go out. So we're believing in NASA and we're totally ignoring what the Quran says.
Howard, please make your answers shorter because you're basically preaching. If I believe gravity exists, have I committed shirk?
If you're giving glory to a theory like the Big Bang and gravity have helped make all this universe and all these billions of years have helped evolution. I know you guys aren't into evolution, but I've heard people like Mansour arguing for evolution and arguing for Big Bang, and that's shirk.
Howard, if I believe gravity exists, have I committed shirk?
if you're ignoring experiments and people that are sharing information and experiments for you to reproduce yourself, I'm not asking you to believe me. I've been 7 years at promoting experiments.
If I believe in gravity, have I committed shirk? Yes or no?
Yes, if you're ignoring new information and information that's in the Quran.
Which scholar said this? In 14 centuries of Islamic history, which scholar said this, that this is shirk?
Shirk is associating power and authority with other things than the creator.
Which scholar in 14th century said believing in gravity, or believing in the geocentric model, or believing in the sun, we're orbiting the sun? Please explain to me which scholar said that this is shirk, associating partners with Allah.
Say that you
I haven't got that list with me now. I was hoping to maybe have a proper discussion with John Fontaine or yourself or someone in the future. I've had debates about this, and I have got a list of scholars, but just not right here. I've just printed these out now. I've got a list of scholars that say this. And the Quran clearly says that the sun and the earth are orbiting us. To ignore that is shirk.
No, shirk means to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to worship something other than Allah. If I follow a scientific principle of something saying that the earth, for example, is a sphere, and I accept that it's a sphere, and the Quran clearly can be interpreted, and most people interpreted it as a sphere actually, this is not shirk. And just because Howard thinks it is shirk, and therefore Howard thinks it's important for us to deal with this and not look at the primary and most important things within Islam, which is to believe and worship the God alone and to accept his messengers and accept the revelation, it doesn't make it so.
Howard isn't the only person. The globe skepticism is a growing community of real scientists that are trusting their God-given senses over propaganda. And a lot of people, like I repeat, a lot of people that I've spoken to have found a religion of either Islam or Christianity thanks to natural sciences. They've observed the deception of propaganda and scientism, and it's brought them closer to the creator. Whether they've chose Christianity or Islam, that's between them and God. Who am I to judge? I'm only telling people theism is true and that their God-given senses and the scripture, like I say, the Quran has over 50 verses, the Bible has over 200 verses that match what we can observe, and they all add up to what each other says. There's only one verse that this Dr. Zak Nakia, or Dr. Zake Nakia, I can't remember his name, he's the guy that's saying that there's an ostrich egg. It's rubbish. There's many Muslim scholars, and all the translations on Quran.com in English say that it's level, like a floor, like a carpet. There's no translation that says ostrich egg. It's only certain propagandists. I don't know if they're meaning to deceive people or if they're just deceive themselves. But there's only that one verse that he says is an ostrich egg. All others say flat. Sorry, I'm not a flat earther. They say level, spread out, carpet.
My voice is being heard or not?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, sorry. I thought maybe you couldn't hear me. I was trying to interject for a while. I think there's a welcome, Howard and Louisa, by the way. Sorry, I was not here for the beginning part of the conversation. I think we've spoken about this before, Howard, to a certain extent. That let me make it very, very basic. So, the purpose of a human being's, the reason that we're here as human beings is to worship God alone without partners. We don't worship the creation in any way, and that means believing the universe, however it is. Whoever says it's flat or round or whatever they want, whatever theory they want to propose, to us is really irrelevant. The purpose of the human being is to worship God alone without partners, and understand that everything is under the dominion of God. God controls everything, and we focus and we pray to that Creator alone, and we're grateful to that Creator alone, and we don't give the creation any of the attributes of the Creator, and we don't give the Creator any of the attributes of the creation. So, you said you made this equivalence between Christianity and Islam. No, that's clearly wrong. You don't worship a man. However you want to theorize and, emphasize that you think that this is God on earth, etc. for us, it's the same as if you're worshipping a tree or a river or the sun or the moon or a human or a woman, man, however you want to put it, it would be the same for us. So that's an issue. And most importantly, we only worship that creator. So there could be an old lady, for example, who lives in the middle of nowhere, who has no understanding of anything to do with science. She's perfectly fine. And there could be the most advanced scientific theorist who's working on ways to understand how the universe is, coming up with all sorts of bizarre theories. As long as he's adhering to the idea that you worship creator alone, then that's a successful individual in terms of our purpose for being here. So with all that preamble, the question really is what difference does it make to any person, Muslim, let's take a Muslim, about the different theories of how the earth is created, how the universe is structured? What difference does that make to us? I think I asked you this question before.
It's okay. I've got a great answer. Yeah?
Yeah, please, yeah.
If Shaitan is using a false model 100%. To fuel atheism, then our moral obligation is to expose lies. There's a verse that says to save one person is to save mankind. And there's also my favorite surah, Al-Baqarah 2, verse 85, where it says, do you believe in some scripture and reject the rest? There's 22 verses that say that the sun and the moon are orbiting us. Why would the Quran have 22 verses saying this unless it was God warning us of Shaitan's deception? There's verses that say we should use our senses and that we'll be tested on this. So that it's warning us not to just believe blindly in what we're told or shown. We're supposed to test all things. And I wasn't relating the Quran with the Bible in every way. I was just saying that the Quran has 50 verses, more than 50 verses, that talk about Earth not being a globe. And the Bible has over 200 verses that talk about the Earth not being a globe for a valid reason. They wouldn't just put this in there for fun. It's obviously in there for an important reason, and we shouldn't reject Scripture. Thank you.
I understand. So there's a problem here, and it goes back to this because a lot of the things that you're saying about the Quran and the worldview that you're insisting that it talks about in terms of how the universe is structured, virtually every single verse that you talk about, it speaks in the context in which it's speaking is talking about the great abilities of Allah in terms of creating the universe and creating the earth and the heavens and the objects within it. And they are ready to get you to reflect on the majesty of the creation around us, to understand that there is a creator. But it's not really for this for those people who somehow come to this thought that there isn't someone who's brought this about. Okay, now when I see all the verses, and you sent us these, you sent us an email just before this. Good. and I've looked at every single one of these verses, and you're paraphrasing. None of these are these. I will be honest with you. None of them say what you hope to think that it says. And there's lots of examples of this. So even the Prophet, peace be upon him, traveling to the seven heavens. We have the Surah Isra wal Miraj. He traveled to the seven heavens, beyond our current heavens that we have, because the first heaven, the Quran says, is where all of the lights that we see when we look out are, and that would include what we currently understood as the known universe. And Allah says that He went beyond this to the seventh heaven. And so even this idea, the Quran talks about orbits. Even for the sun, it's traveling in a place toward its end. We have very clear verses where people talk about the sun setting and rising. You see it setting and you see it rising. And if you look at how the Prophet, peace be upon him, spoke about the times that will come, where there will be a day as long as a year. For example, when the Shaitan comes. This is from our Hadith tradition. The first thing the companions asked was, what should we do in that day in terms of our prayer? And the Prophet, peace be upon him, just explained to them how to answer that solution. There's another example from the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where they were fasting, and another group of people came. And they were actually having Eid, if I remember correctly. It was the Eid for them. So the Prophet said, well, why are you not fasting? And they said that we've seen the moon. Yesterday we saw the moon, and they hadn't seen it where they were. So the Prophet said, okay, everyone should open their fast and they should celebrate the Eid, because when you get a verification from a Muslim who's you accept that, and you would carry out the Eid. So this is another example of someone seeing in their location the rising of the moon, but that not being seen in another place because they're in a different geographical location. So all of these things, for me, even the verses you put forward, for me, it's not conclusive at all. But I don't see the problem here, because the argument you seem to be making is, unless you believe in the universe as the way I believe it, that you're not fulfilling your religion. Now, the Prophet, peace be upon him, has taught us everything. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that everything that will take you closer to paradise and further away from the hellfire, I have told you about. And everything that will take you closer to the hellfire and further away from paradise, I have warned you about. The views of how the universe is, etc. So what you're bringing, Howard, is something for us that is new, and I would say not conclusive from our perspective in terms of a requirement of the religion. So we have requirements. So the fundamentals of the faith, believing in God alone without partners, and believing the Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. You give the charity for the poor, which is known as the zakat. You pray, you fast during the month of Ramadan, and you travel to the Hajj once in your life if you're able. These 5 things, none of them are about how the universe is. None of them.
Can you hear us?
We can hear you, but your image is frozen.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
So again, so the question then comes: why is your particular worldview something that is mandatory for a Muslim to believe in?
That's a great question. I'll try and be as concise as possible. I don't know what shape the earth is, and I believe that the Quran is helping us see what it isn't. We can't imagine what a 4th-dimensional cube, a tesseract, even looks like. We can draw what we think it might look like. So imagine a 5D, 6D, 7D. The Quran is giving us clear instruction of what the earth isn't, and it's helping us understand that it's out of our comprehension, that only the Creator can see and know and understand and hear all of these truths. So when NASA are going out supposedly in space and showing us a video or a photo, which are clearly fake, which, like I say, on weather reports we can see, that's claiming to have his authority. Okay, that's claiming that gravity is a partner with Allah because that has magical powers. But back to your original question, I believe it's important to expose the globe lie without knowing what Earth is, because from my experience, it has been the best form of dawah, evangelism, because without the contingent theories that go with the globe, without a globe, there's no Big Bang. Without Big Bang, there's no millions, billions of years, there's no evolution, there's no infinite space that you can go and populate countries. So my point is, atheism falls over like the domino effect. Atheism is no longer a rational worldview when all of these theories are debunked. That is the best form of worship to disprove Shaitan's lies.
So I think because what you seem to be saying is that the best way to teach people to worship the Creator is for them to know that the Earth is not a globe.
The best way for people to not be misled by Shaitan's deceptions is to expose lies with our God-given senses and inform other people how they can do it too.
So
there are many experiments.
What is Shaitan's greatest deception?
Well, you'd have to ask Shaitan, but the cliche that I like is the greatest trick the devil ever played was to convince everybody that he doesn't exist. So atheists are the same as Satanists. They're like to be as gods, no? To think that we can go to another planet and repopulate and be as gods. Yeah, to think that there is no God because everything's relative, everything's subjective. There's no upright because in Australia, you're upside down. There is an upright, and the Quran says that he's above the canopy, the well-protected canopy, which if I may just throw this one in before you speak, it says well-protected canopy, Surah Kaf 50, verse 6. It's a structure adorned with stars without cracks or rifts. And in many other, like I say, there's 8 verses that say there's a canopy that we can't pass through. So are you going to believe NASA have gone out there and taken photos and videos, or are you going to believe what the Quran says? And are you going to believe what you can test?
So rather than quoting usual suspects, I think that's where you got the quote from the greatest trick that the devil ever did was to prove that he didn't exist. So that's a movie, and that's not, that's so. In Islam, we don't get our understanding of the greatest problems, the greatest enemy towards humankind, which is the shaitan. What his aim is from.
But they use. Oh, sorry.
So what the shaitan's aim is for us to not worship the Creator, to turn away from Him. Now, when you the way that you don't worship the Creator is that you assume that anything in the creation has the abilities of Allah, or you attribute to Allah the abilities of creation, like you make God into a man or a tree or a fish or the sun or the moons, or you direct your worship to other than the Creator. Yeah. Now, none of those things are incumbent upon. So even if the world, let's look at any theories. I would love to know how you got 7D out of the Quran, apart from the fact that it uses the number 7. That's something that was, I don't know how you arrived at this conclusion, but this is something that you're doing. If you look at
the command.
Yeah, so the Quran talks about the number 7 in terms of heavens and earths, etc. But you're talking about 7 dimensions, and that would be interesting to understand how that is. And if you look at what you're saying, anyone who believes in any way that the universe is created, so someone who believes flat earther, someone who believes in the standard scientific model that we currently have, someone who believes in a quantized universe where everything is 11 dimensional, and you between each quanta of space there could be a 9 other dimensions. However they're bringing forth their ideas, as long as you understand in your theorization and model building that everything ultimately is Allah's creation under His control, and He's put it here for the purpose of worshipping Him, none of those things makes a difference to your abilities in terms of succeeding in this life. The only other thing that I'm going to say is that the best way to remove the problems of science and scientism is actually to understand the foundations of science and not any one particular model. Because when you understand the foundations of science, you learn its limitations, and you learn then to get people to understand that these are really models that people are producing, and those models can change depending on the data that comes your way. So again, I think we're going around in circles, essentially, in the sense that you think this is really important, and we don't see this anyone in history, in terms of the Muslims, ever using this as a method to try and prove the existence of the Creator or anything else like that, or even calling people to Islam.
It's like I said before. If we can do it really quick. If we can go on.
Howard, just 1 second. If you could just make your last point, because I've got a few other people waiting and we're running out of time. So please go ahead. If you could just kindly make it short, and then we'll ask Nazam if you'd like to add anything to this. Nazam, would you like to add anything at the end of this? Otherwise, I'm going to get Rob on next, and I think we'll let you have first dibs with Rob. Howard, please make your last point, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. I just referenced the Surah 65:12 to Dr. Imran, where it says 7 heavens and a similar number of earths. That's where I get the 7-dimensional shape from. I also referenced Surah 17:36, where it says, "Do not follow blindly what you do not know to be true. Eyes, ears, and heart, you will be questioned about these." And Surah 36:62, Shaitan has already misled great multitudes of you. Did you not have any sense? We're supposed to use our senses, and there's no globe skeptics that are atheists. That's my point. No one that discovers the globe is a lie remains atheist. And that is the best form of dawah that any of us could do.
Thank you.
I've got it on my YouTube channel and my experience. Thank you for having us.
Howard.
Thank you.
Nazam, would you like to add?
Well, I was just going to say at Speaker's Corner, we've had atheists who are flat earthers. So,
Okay.
there's
Can I
videos
just
online
do one final thing before?
Yeah.
So, Howard, what are you Muslim?
I'm a theist. I'm searching for answers by reading scripture and validating what I can with my God-given senses, which is what the Quran and the Bible both say. Test all things.
Why are you not a Muslim?
Because there's things in the Quran, and there's not so much in the Quran, there's things in the Sunnah, yeah, which I don't agree with, because I don't think that God would contradict himself. He claims to give us free will, but the Sunnah, is it Sunnah? Is that how you say it? Where the hadiths are saying that Muhammad married a 6-year-old, that goes against the 6-year-old's free will. So in my opinion, that is not from God. There's many things in the Quran that I do agree with, but there's this Sunnah or the hadiths that go against what free will is. So I'm of the opinion that the devil has manipulated hadith, he's manipulated other scripture, and he's using mainstream media and scientism to cause us to worship people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Cox, and theories instead of worshipping the creator and testing all things.
But can I just say, he also doesn't call himself a Christian.
Yeah, I'm not a Christian.
He doesn't call himself a Christian.
I'm not interested
he believes
in
in the creator.
I understand. So my interest is not whether you're a Christian or not, because Christians worship, whether they understand it or not, they worship a human being.
Yeah, but it is a fair point, because you're asking him if he's a Muslim, and the fact that he says no, it doesn't mean it's because he wants to be another denomination. It's that he keeps himself open because he's continuously questioning.
I'm humble. Yeah. I'm searching. I don't believe as the answers. I don't believe God is in a book. I believe God is in the heavens above on his throne, like the Quran and the Bible say. I believe there's truth in these books. I believe they're inspired by God, but I believe that Shaitan has had his little fingers or whatever he's got, his claws in things. And I believe that it's our moral obligation to expose Shaitan's lies, like in the verses I mentioned.
Okay, so let's.
And
let's
also, can I make one point, please? Because I haven't said anything throughout this whole thing. Yeah. But you keep asking the question about whether why does it even matter? And it's a fair point, because I didn't come to this conclusion or this thought about the Earth not being heliocentric until recently, before I met Howard. But the reason why I think it's important to at least be open to this possibility and to investigate it is because otherwise your lifestyle and your religion is very clear about being strict about the way you live. So why shouldn't you also be strict about the way you see things? And by seeing something that potentially is false, and if we are living in a falsity, everything around us is false, then that is a massive deception, and it's invading into what we think and believe to be right or wrong. So then we need to be clear about what's right or wrong, because otherwise potentially we could be veered off into the wrong path. We need to pray. We need to, believe in God, the creator, a creator, but we also need to be real about what we see around us. And if we're not thinking and questioning what's around us, then we're being ignorant.
Sure. Okay, Louisa, thank you for that. So let me just clarify. So
thank you.
No problem. That's fine. So the whole point here is, I'm not into your worldview about how the universe is or isn't. I'm saying is irrelevant. That's no problem. No problem. Is the sun out where you are? Your sound's gone, Howard.
Sorry, someone was walking past and the dogs were just barking. We've just got the lights on, so it's not so dark in here.
Okay, no problem. So the problem with this is that there's a conflation here between being on the path of worshipping the creator with the understanding how the universe is in a correct way. And that's a problem, because our Prophet, peace be upon him, has never said that your route to salvation is to know that the earth is not round. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, predicted many things about the beginning at the end of times, and what people would say and how they would do, but none of them is to understand that the universe is a particular way or the earth is a particular way. But coming back to your point, so I'm actually not interested in whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, or whether you're searching into other things, but I'm really interested in Islam. Now, one of the things that you've said very interestingly is that you believe that Islam there's a sign that it's been corrupted by Satan, and that sign was that the Prophet peace be upon him married a 6-year-old, and you said that shows that there was no consent. This is what you said: free will was missing. So how do we know? How do we know about this incident?
From Hadith. It's not in the Quran specifically. So I believe the Hadith are corrupted. Yeah.
So who told us this? Who was the person that's narrating this?
I can't verify these things. I can only verify that the earth isn't a globe of natural sciences, and that tells me that those things are true in the Quran. And just to quickly say, the best form of worship is to expose Shaitan's lies and help others get closer to God. That it doesn't matter what shape the earth is. Whatever Shaitan's lie is, whatever Shaitan's lying about and using to mislead people, that's our moral obligation to expose and debunk. I don't care about the shape of the earth. I only care that they're using that against us.
Okay, so so let's go back to the point. So who was the person that told us that the marriage of Aisha took place at 6 and then was consummated at 9? Who told us this?
I've seen about 4 or 5 different hadith. I haven't got them with me right now. So I've got about 4 or 5. One of them says 7 years old, and the others say 6.
So who told us about this?
I'd be lying if I don't remember the names of the authors. I've got them on my computer. I've been on to sunnah.com.
I'm going to explain to you now. So actually, it's Aisha herself who tells us. So she herself narrates this. She says that, and the marriage was, the ceremony was conducted when she was 6, and then when she was mature, whichever by that the standard of society was mature, and we can come to the criteria for that because it's interesting because the criteria hasn't changed.
But I think
when 9 isn't mature, Dr. Imran. You know the frontal lobe hasn't developed by 9 years old. We didn't really want to have this conversation because it's a touchy subject.
No, it's not a touchy subject. And I'm telling you why, because what's happening here is you're taking a lack of understanding about Islam and you're using that as an excuse not to enter Islam, but you're focusing on something that's really irrelevant, how the universe is or isn't, and you're saying that's more important than the rest of the religion. It means that you're not worshipping God. Now, and what's actually happened is you've got these two the wrong way around. Completely the wrong way around. The biggest trick that Shaitan is playing is that he's getting you to you're focusing on something that actually is you think a sign of the Shaitan doing something within the religion that's changing it, corrupting it, but you're focusing on something with nothing to do with anything, and you're not making any conclusion at all. How am I going to worship Creator? Which religion am I going to follow? I'm open to what? Everything? Is this that Shaitan's leading you to a place where you're just going to be open? Now, if you want to go into the age of Aisha, we'll have lots and lots of conversations about this. And you're applying a modern Eurocentric standard to the 7th century, assuming that this is somehow a valid approach. It's actually anachronistic, and you're not understanding that because this thing is. If you think this is holding you back, then you're going to have lots of problems because
Sorry.
Go on, please. You have what? Sorry.
I have faith in my God-given senses and scientific experiments that I can experience. They prove Shaitanic lies. I don't have faith in what is written or what's been said by other men in the past. That can be corrupted. My God-given senses are more strong because other God-given senses can verify, and then a camera, then a thermometer can test that moonlight chills water. Just like the Quran and the Bible say that the moon emits its own light, Yeah, it's bright. It's its own light. It doesn't reflect sunlight. Otherwise, it wouldn't chill water. Check for yourself. Leaving a glass of water under moonlight and a glass of water in the shade of moonlight. These are things we can verify. These are our moral obligation. I don't trust in what. Let me just say it quickly again. I don't trust in what other people say. I trust in things that I can verify with my God-given senses, and so should you, Howard, especially when they confirm what the Quran literally says. Thank you.
Howard, thank you for coming on. Imran,
fair enough.
If you could just round up. But Howard, thanks for coming on, and hopefully we'll
thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Imran, if you could just sum up, please, before we move to the next guest.
Okay, so because it's interesting, I think we've made more headway in the last few moments than in all of our previous conversation, because you've said something that's very, very interesting. So first thing you said, you don't believe anything that anyone's written, or the Quran was written.
There's a difference between belief and knowledge.
The Quran
sorry.
was written, the Bible was written, all these things you're referring to were written. Okay. The other thing is you keep referring to experimentation and these things. Do you believe that in electors, do you believe people can call each other on the phone?
I know that people can call each other on the phone because I've got a personal experience, and everyone can repeat the experiment. Yes.
So have you ever called anyone in Australia when you're in England?
Not Australia, but America.
I have. We get people in Australia who come onto our streams, and they sitting in the sun while we're sitting in the dark.
From Australia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there are, and then that's my experience. I have an experience of talking to a human being who's clear and rational, sitting with the sun bright high in the sky where they are, and I'm in a place where the sun has set. Yeah, and it's not.
That would be the same.
Now, and
regardless what model of Earth.
When we look at the moon, we see that we see a shadow that goes across the moon every month, and the moon becomes a sliver in terms of appearance to us, and we need a way of explaining this. So there's lots of things that we can produce that for us, as in our experience, can give the opposite conclusion. But what I would say to you is, none of those things are as important as understanding that your route to salvation is to worship God alone without partners, according to how the Messenger Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has laid out. Now, what that would mean is that I'd love you to come on again, but I'd love to focus on not understanding whether the world is like this or not, because they're not relevant. None of these examples, all the verses you've provided, I'm looking at, they're all in the context of like explaining that he controls everything and everything is in his power. Nothing to do with how the universe may or may not be, what models you bring about it. And that's not the thing that Satan wants from you. What he wants from you is to worship other than the creator, or not to worship the creator at all, which is what this avoidance, of being open leads you to. So I'd love you to come back again and let's talk about the specific things that prevent you from entering Islam. And if it's this issue of the marriage of Aisha, peace be upon her, may Allah be pleased with her, then I'm happy to have a really in-depth conversation with you about this, because I've discussed this in depth. Even at Speaker's Corner, you can see videos where I've had these long discussions about this, and then we talk about what constitutes maturity mentally, physically, psychologically, and if this has varied through societies and times. And we will talk about the criteria within Islam, because the key for you and for Louisa, in my opinion, humble opinion, is to worship that creator without any partners. If you're doing anything else at the moment of your death, then you're not doing the thing that the creator wants. And the way the creator has always communicated is he sends messengers to give that information to you. So Howard, lovely to have you.
Thank you for coming on, Howard.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, Rob, we're going to get you on next. Nazam, you have to address Rob first, because you've been very silent, and that's a very naughty thing. Rob, welcome to the stream.
I admire both of your patience. I hope my mic is coming through.
Yep, loud and clear. Rob,
oh my goodness, you were much more patient than I would have. Anyway, well, my questions were based on just say a prior guest that came on, and I think starting with what's his name, Jason
Burns, Pastor Jason Burns, yes,
yeah. I actually don't have an issue with, I mean, speaking as a Christian, I don't have an issue with tracing the Quran back without any, error or textual variation to an original. In fact, based on our discussions prior, which I haven't really discussed with Nizam properly, so this would be an opportunity, I suppose. But if you're able to faithfully go back to an original Quran, as you've argued, and I do agree with your argument, then that sort of falls into my lap of my criticisms with respect to what I then see in the Quran as being then on the lips of Muhammad, which in your theology goes all the way back to Allah. So things like those certain legendary stories and all those things. The other question I have is, so that's, we can discuss that. The other thing we can discuss is what these two flat earthers are discussing, but not so much that I'm going to go that
They don't
route.
regard themselves as flat earthers. So let's be fair to them. They did say that we're not flat earthers.
So they're flat earthers, but we're not flat earthers.
Anyway, let's move on. Yeah. But let's not perhaps better not talk.
But I do have a legitimate question. It's not a tongue in cheek. It's a legit question. So I have Yusuf Ali's translation. I find it interesting to see, different translations, right? And Yusuf Ali's one with Surah 85 Ayah 1, he puts it this way. Well, actually, I'll read Surah 25:61 and then 85:1. So 25:61 says, "Blessed is he who made constellations in the skies and placed therein a lamp and a moon giving light." And then 85:1, it's the same Arabic word used, but then for some reason, Yusuf Ali goes, "by the sky displaying the zodiacal signs." And then I look at the tafsirs, and the tafsirs talk about, I think it's pronounced Buruj, and the 12 Buruj, and even Ibn Kathir talks about how the sun and the moon go, so the ecliptic line goes through the Buruj, through the 12 constellations. I've briefly touched on this with Muslims on other platforms. They've told me that, the shapes, as understood in the zodiacal astrological sense, God, Allah, put it that way providentially. But then that's sort of ammunition, I suppose, to then the two guests that came on, because from their point of view, it's geocentric, and so that's a legit question I have with respect to those two ayah.
So okay,
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm not a cosmologist, and nor am I a Quranic scholar. So any answer I can give is just something that I may have read or seen or learned from others. And in this respect, I don't have an answer. I've not really studied this before.
Sure.
So
okay.
Sorry, I can't give you an answer to it. So
sorry, what was the question? Sorry, I missed. I was in and out for a little bit.
So it's just regarding the commentary to Surah 85 verse 1, in relationship to Surah 25 verse 61. About
and I suppose, why did Yusuf Ali himself, the same Arabic word, but why did he say zodiac in 85:1 and not 25:61? And then why?
Yeah, because it does seem like it's the same Arabic word from what I can see. Yeah, Buruj and Buruja. Yeah, which means stars.
And if that's the case,
why were two different words used?
In the translation of Yusuf Ali. Yeah.
Oh, in the Yusuf Ali translation.
Well, I'm just coming on reacting based on their prior guess. So Imran, just to quickly update you, I agree. I actually liked your explanation on Quran preservation. But then this falls into, again, our prior discussions on my conflicts with the legendary material in the Quran, because if you do trace it back, that gives me ammunition to then further that discussion, I suppose, like that then that Muhammad did, or in this case Allah did, regurgitate that material. So we can either discuss that or your flat earth guess, and with respect to these two ayah, that these are legit questions with respect to these two ayah. Like Yusuf Ali has zodiacal signs in one ayah, and the other one he just has constellations. And then Tafsir speak about the 12 Buruj, and even Jalalain actually names them, like the zodiacal signs as we understand them: Aries, Taurus, things like that. Like, in other words, did Allah create the zodiacal signs according to these two ayah?
Okay. So what is the point that you're trying to make? Because you're saying these two words in different surahs are translated differently. So what is that?
What's your? I suppose what's your understanding of the two ayah? I suppose.
So they're both talking about constellations.
Yeah.
So constellations are when human beings on the earth look up into the sky, they see certain patterns of stars that they see. And some people in the past, what they've done is they've taken those patterns and they've drawn a shape on it. You know, a bow or whatever that might be, a ram, and then they've named it. And that became known as a different, the months of the year, and they've worked out which ones they can see, and they've named them the zodiacal signs. Yeah, the signs of the zodiac.
Yep.
And if you go to different cultures, they have different creatures or whatever they've done in terms of drawing across these things for them. So if you went to a different a culture, say the Maoris, they'll have a different shape of creature in these stars than say the Greeks did. And all we see here is the reference to Buruj just simply means constellation, which is really a gathering of stars. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. And in here, the writer, the translator, has decided to use the term zodiacal signs, but in another place where the same word is used, he hasn't. But the problem here is this: you're bringing some significance from this, and that's what I'm trying to understand. What is the significance? So if there's a point to be made here, make the point.
Okay, the point. So the point. All right. So the point I'm wondering about is who's speaking in 2561. It should be Allah, right? Blessed is He. Oh, who's the one saying, "Blessed is He who made constellations in the skies"?
So the Quran often talks in a narrative voice. So it does that quite often. And often, sometimes in the Quran, you'll also see Allah telling someone else to say something. So Allah can narrate these things. And so, for example, if you read one verse back in Surah 25, it says, when it is said to them, this is the Yusuf Ali translation. Maybe I shouldn't, because it contains a lot of errors within the way it's translated, particularly when it comes to Jesus, peace be upon him. But it says, when it is said to them, adore ye God the most gracious, they say, and what is it? What is God the most gracious? Shall we adore that which thou commandest us, and it increases their flight from the truth? Blessed is he who made the constellations in the sky and placed where therein a lamp and a moon giving light, and it is he who made the night and day to follow each other, for such as have the will to celebrate his praises or to show their gratitude. And the servants of God most gracious are those who walk on earth in humility, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace. So this is really talking about responding to those people above. With this, blessed is he who, because they're asking about who is the most gracious, and the response to that is, blessed is he who made the constellations in the sky. So their question is, well, who is this most gracious you keep talking about?
Which ironically,
and then the response to that is this blessed is he. Right. If you're expecting the Quran always to talk in the first person, it doesn't do that at all.
No, that's not my issue. Like I'm fine with your explanation on that. My question is, so your response there with the prior ayah actually then is a good response to your prior guess, right? But then this particular ayah will be like a brick wall to them, because they'll be like, hang on, but then it says, blessed is Allah who does make or has created the constellations. And when I look at all the tafsir, like the ancient ones, all of them speak about the 12 Buruj in that geocentrical cosmology that they held to. They didn't, by the way, they didn't hold to a flat Earth. That's ridiculous. It was a globe Earth even in the 6th century BC in like easily 1,000 years prior. But in that spherical Earth, but it's still geocentric, and so the ecliptic, so the sun and the moon follow that ecliptic along the Buruj. And I'm wondering, is Allah saying this?
No,
so is Allah saying that He's made this? Yeah.
So this is the thing, because what you're doing is maybe not doing that. That's maybe pejorative. What I'm seeing is that you're taking a tafsir from the past, very early tafsirs, as you're saying, and you're saying that the people are referring to the constellations using terms that were known amongst the people who were naming these things as the zodiacal signs. And so when people were seeing this, they know that this is referring to those constellations, and they were writing tafsir saying that this is referring to this zodiacal sign, and somehow you're making this like the zodiacal signs are from Allah. I don't understand what you mean. Are the constellations the creations of God? Yes. The way that they are in the
that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking
the constellations. I'm explaining. Are the constellations the creations of Allah? Yes. In the way that they are? Yes. How would people refer to anything that is known commonly amongst the people who are writing and speak? You'd refer to them in the common way. Does that mean then you could take that understanding of that human being according to their milieu in which they're in, and they're explaining the verse back to that time? No. You can't take it back to Allah and say Allah means the zodiacal signs as we like. Allah means Aries, Allah means Capricorn, Allah means Gemini. No, because then you're taking that tafsir and you're making that definitive in terms of this is the intention, or this is exactly what's being referred to. Because Allah says constellation. The fact that constellation isn't referring to zodiacal signs is evidenced by the first verse you gave in Surah Furqan, where it says Allah made the constellations and didn't refer to them as zodiacal signs.
I suppose.
Did you understand the point?
Yeah, I did. I understand what you're saying.
So you can't take the tafsir and work backwards.
No, but this is right. But this is my clarifying question: was Buruj used to define, say, the night sky, the starry sky, as only describing the starry sky and not associated with the zodiac? Like, was Buruj a common term, or was Buruj specific for the zodiacal
Buruj means constellations, and constellations we know refers to the zodiacal sign, the things that we now refer to as zodiac signs.
But then that's my issue. So like, why can't it just be generic, like stars, like he created the stars?
Because constellations are not just stars; they're a collection of specific arrangement of stars.
Well, in this case, with patterns, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how clumped the stars are. The point is,
no, you're misunderstanding.
There's an arrangement based on an imaginary drawing.
No. There's human beings are observing these stars in these specific patterns for millennia, and they've named these patterns certain things. Now, that conglomerate of star lights that we see in the sky, because they could be millions and millions of light years away from each other, we look up and we see them and we say this constellation is, and then we give it a name. You understand? It's that referring to that specific pattern of stars that we see is not the same as just saying stars, because stars we refer to any light in the sky.
Yeah, but astronomers don't really use terms like.
So we're not talking about astronomers.
We shy away from.
Rob, what is your point? Rob, what is your point to bring this up? What are you implying? Let's be open so we can deal with it, rather than.
I'm not being a troll. I'm being genuine here. Like I heard two discussions that piqued my interest. That's why I joined. So one was Quran preservation, which leads to the prior discussions on what I see in the Quran with biblical characters, and then this one, which is just
So
anyway.
just to sort of the first point. I mean, you had a really great discussion with Brother Muhammad Ali, Muslim Lanson, where he spoke to you about looking at the things that contradict your thesis, and you struggled very much in that conversation, in my opinion, to establish reasons why there would be counter examples to your theory. And I think that's why I don't think
actually he cut out like another 30 minutes.
That's why I don't think that topic is worth discussing. You raised this point, and again in this point, there doesn't seem to be a point. The question was, why is one constellations and the other one zodiacal signs, or translated that way?
Is the word only used for the zodiacal signs in that period with the Buruj? Is Buruj an astrological term?
Buruj means constellations. A conglomerate of stars.
Hold on a second. But Rob, you use the word astrological. rather than astronomical. They are very different. You realize that?
Yes, exactly. That's my intention.
Astrology is something that Islam forbids. It's haram. It's forbidden.
Right. But that's my question. Why is an astrological term?
So that's why, Rob. That's why it's very important that we pick the correct choice of words. You also you also said earlier about geocentric. It's confirming the geocentric model. No, it's not. That's not what it's confirming at all. And now you've used the term astrological, and the Quran doesn't talk about astrology in that sense. It actually forbids astrology and the reading of stars and what have you. This is actually forbidden in Islam. It's haram. It's shirk. It's associating partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because only Allah knows the past, the present, and the future. So that's why I want you to frame your question or your contention clearly, rather than putting these little words in which seem to imply something that's very different. So please be very clear. What exactly are you getting at here? And just be open about that so we can deal with that.
No, it's very clear. Like, if that word is an astrological term in that period, then, and I've actually Googled this. I've researched it. I wanted to track down etymologically that term in even pre-Islamic culture with respect to the astrology at the time. And it's a term that's used with the 12 signs of the zodiac as we understand it. And Ibn Kathir, Jalalain, all these guys go out of the way to say, the sun follows through certain months with respect to each Buruj. And I'm wondering, well, you have the Quran affirming that Allah's the one. So the polemic here then is that Allah subordinates the 12 zodiacs to him. So I agree with you. God is not subject to the Buruj, rather the Buruj is subject to him. But then my question to you is, then that means Allah has created the patterns for the pagans to then make those shapes. And it's already fixed. Rob, but we know, but by the way, just quickly, Imran, we know in Big Bang Theory, we know it's taken 13 billion years for the constellations to never be like that at any given moment. It's always evolving and changing.
This is a problem. So in your discussions, you conflate I think it's to be generous to you. I don't know if you realize, but you conflate so many things that your answer becomes nonsensical. So what you seem to be saying is that there are 12 other the parts of the zodiac are these other gods that are under the control of I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. So people worship the zodiacal, they worship the zodiacal signs in some form or other. So God created them, and therefore He brought this about. People worship human beings. I mean, Christians worship a man who walked in Palestine, apparently was killed even. He ate food, he went to the bathroom, who was a baby, who understood things, peace be upon him, and learned knowledge. And yes, and God created human beings. Does that mean He brought about the worship of human beings? People worship snakes and rats. If you go to certain parts of India, they do this even today. Just the creation of, just because something is created, that gives you the understanding that therefore God is bringing about the worship of that thing. Even if God created all of the stars and they had patterns and they fit with anything else we know, what makes you say that you can worship them?
So my question then is: was Buruj used outside astrological discussions?
So here we go. So
I was going to say it is in the Quran. Well, I was going to say, if you want a non-chronic reference to Buruj being used for something else other than constellation, then in chapter 4, verse number 78, it's used to refer to high towers. So it basically says to the effect that, sorry to cut you, Dr. Imran, by the way. I didn't mean to.
No problem.
It's chapter 4, verse 78. I'm sorry, I have to pull it up again.
Well, it goes to 176.
Death will overtake you no matter where you be inside high towers. When good fortune comes their way, they say this is from God, and when harm befalls them, they say this is from you. Say to them, both come from God. What is the matter with these people? They barely understand what they are told.
So in that verse, 178 or high towers. Yes, 78. Yeah.
Chapter what chapter?
4.
Oh, that's really odd because. Wait, let me bring it up.
Surah Nisa, the chapter of women.
Let me have a look at that. 4.
So the Arabic word is burujin. Burujin.
One moment. Chapter 4, for some reason, Quran.com goes all the way down to 176.
Yeah, it's verse 78. 78.
Oh, I thought you said 178. Sorry.
Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Okay. Within towers of lofty construction, Sahih International. Yeah, now this is interesting because lofty towers I see in the tafsirs where they talk about the Buruj as being lofty towers in regards to the zodiac.
Okay, interesting.
And notice that the verse says, wherever you may be, death will overtake you, even if you should be within towers of lofty construction. But if good comes to them, they say this is from Allah, meaning just like the astrologers, how they would appeal to
nothing to do with astrology.
The sign of the month, Aries.
It's got nothing to do with astrology, Rob.
But that's what the tafsir. That's what people are saying.
You know, Rob. This is. I'm sorry.
This is fortune telling.
Rob, you know what it is? This is really embarrassing. I'm sorry. It really is. It's really
the verse is proving my point. It's astrological fortune telling.
This is so scraping the barrel that it's actually embarrassing. It really is.
So the verse itself, but 1 second, Abbas. The verse itself says, did you read the verse? What did it say? If some good, they say this is from God, but if evil befalls you, they say this is from thee. Say all things are from God.
Mm-hmm.
So where's astrological projection coming into it?
Yeah, no. Here's what's ironic. From what I've read with lofty tower language.
No, I don't want to hear about lofty tower language.
Just like the fortune tellers, they'd be like, "I'll appeal to the month of the year."
Here we go. This is it. Okay,
no, what's happening is appeal to Allah, not to fortune telling. That's the point.
Is this what you think? Yeah.
That's what I've read in the scholarship.
No, you haven't read it. You said you've heard. No, this is the problem here. When what you tend to do is, and this is ways you obfuscate.
By the way, I can answer the 3 wise men if you want me to.
Can you? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I can.
But the whole point here is that you're making a claim about astrology for Islam when Islam talks completely against it, based upon a word, and then thinking this word means there's something specific. You're saying, it's the constellations, and it means the zodiacal signs. But any word that's given to you, so now you're giving a different word, lofty towers. Oh, this also means astrology. And I think the problem is that maybe you're fixed in your thinking, and I have to say it doesn't come across sincere. So if you're trying to convince me as a Muslim that this is what if you think Islam says that fortune tellers and fortune is, astrology somehow allowed within Islam, then I would say thank you very much. Go and read a much more basic text on Islam. I'd recommend the Fundamentals of Tawheed, and there's a chapter on there on fortune telling, and maybe that will help you. Because what you'll find is that the Quran is completely against that. So, Rob, I think you've got. I don't think this is going anywhere conversation-wise.
Do you want me to change the topic to another topic?
No, I don't think that would. Why? Because this topic hasn't been fruitful. Why would any other topic you bring be fruitful if it's going to come from the same mindset?
No, it has. No, I feel you guys are avoiding my observations here and my questions.
Yeah, your
like I don't. Why do you feel that you've? Like, for example, when you said Muslim Lantern did a good job, I don't think so. I made 2 shorts from a professional Egyptologist reacting that the pharaoh didn't drown.
Egyptologist.
But the Quran says the pharaoh drowned. Yeah.
Egyptologist, yeah. So which mummy was that scene with the salt content?
According to Maurice Bucali.
No. The mummy was not the mummy isn't Maurice Bucal's mummy, is it? He didn't make it in his basement and then produce it.
No mummy has sand content. No mummy has drowning content in it.
Salt content.
No. Show me the mummy that has a salt content. Because professional Egyptologists of the field will say that pharaoh drowned. From that dynastic period, the 18th to 19th dynastic period, no pharaoh in that period drowned. So
okay, no problem. Thank you very much, Rob. It's been really nice to see you. Maybe speak to if you can.
Well, what about Nizam? I thought Abbas wanted Nizam to interact. Do you want to have an interaction?
Yeah, we can speak, Rob. Maybe if I message you and we can speak. It's just because there's other guests. I'm assuming that are waiting. If there's no other guests,
I think Nazam just realised this wasn't going anywhere. Decided.
Oh no! Well, I have another reference to Buruj, not meaning like constellation. Like Surah 33, verse 33. It's used to refer to display or to outward display. It's in reference to
obviously display means astrology as well, right?
Yeah.
Display means astrology. Towers means astrology. Constellations means astrology. Zodiac
all the tafsirs used lofty towers, constellations, zodiac. Yusuf Ali has zodiac there.
Yeah.
Why did he choose zodiac?
But that's the problem here. So why does choosing the term that people commonly call these shapes?
But Yusuf Ali is in the last century.
Yeah. But and have you looked at any other translations apart from Yusuf Ali?
Constellations, but constellation is a zodiacal term or an astrological term.
The case is finished. So
constellation is not astronomers don't say constellation.
You're using the exception and you're making it the rule, but the exception proves the rule. So you have an exception and you're insisting that this exception is the correct understanding that, say, that Islam talks about or promotes or is related to astrology. And I think that's the flaw in your argument. You pick and choose at little straws in different haystacks, and you try and build your own haystack, and you're not building a haystack.
So all the early Islamic commentators and scholars who saw clearly that this is the zodiacal signs, they're all wrong. It's just constellation. It's just a collection of stars.
I want to understand this phraseology. So they referred to the constellations using the names that were known by the people who would refer to these constellations.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying this proves, therefore, that they are following the belief system.
No, they're not. They're not following. They're saying that Allah is the one that created it.
Sorry, Rob. Let me just finish my sentence. So, are you asserting here that those Muslim scholars who referred to these constellations as zodiacal signs followed the belief systems of the people who follow astrology, etc.? Are you saying that?
All right, I'll read. This is a short one by Ibn Abbas.
I'm asking you a question, Rob. You're not answering my question.
So you can actually see what they say.
I'm asking you the question.
Because I'm not, unless I'm misunderstanding them, I'll read what they say. So I'll read Ibn Abbas and Jalalain. So Ibn Abbas says,
One second.
regarding interpretation of Allah saying by heaven.
One second. We know that Ibn Abbas often quotes Israeli art, so sources from the Jews and the Christians. He's known for this. And you're quoting Jalalain, which is the shortest translation. I've got it on my shelf here somewhere, if I can just quickly find it. The shortest.
I can even quote you Ibn Kathir.
But you're making. You need to make the assertion. This is the assertion.
So let me just read a sentence, 1 second, Rob, and then you react to these.
Imran, do you want this one?
That's the one that I've got on my shelf somewhere.
Okay.
If you, the point that you need to, this is what you need to establish, that the Muslims who are writing this down in their tafsirs, are holders of the beliefs of astrology. That's what you have to establish.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not saying that. The Quran says Allah created the Buruj, the constellations. These scholars are reacting, going, yeah, because he's the Almighty God. But the irony here is they're not saying that the zodiac does not exist. The zodiac does exist, but Allah is the one. All right, I'll read it.
No. What do you mean that the zodiac does not exist? Are you saying the constellations?
Like they literally think that there are 12 literal signs in the night sky.
No, hey, so now there's the conflation now.
Okay, so I'll read it. I'll read it.
You can read in 1 second. There are stars in the sky in a specific pattern, a constellation.
Yeah.
Some people have named them. Why would you say that constellation doesn't exist?
Because from Earth's perspective, there's no special frame of reference, right? So from Earth's perspective, that's a phenomenon of a certain shape. But if I go out to, say, the Andromeda galaxy, there's no Buruj.
So in Andromeda, the constellations we see are different. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
No, you won't see any constellations from the
wherever
you are
will.
in Andromeda
This
Galaxy, or even if we are on the other side of our own Milky Way.
This is a ridiculous argument. So hey, listen, let me help you understand what you said. On the Earth, we look up.
Can you help me understand the Tafsir? Can I read the Tafsir out?
I'm going to help you understand. If you listen to me, you'll understand. You're saying, if we look up in the sky, we see some specific patterns that people over time have named with these names. Yes, the zodiacal signs they're called. So your argument is, well, they're not real because if you go to Andromeda, there's a different set of stars. And you're saying you're saying there are no constellations there. Actually, I would say to you that if you're there long enough and people observe the same pattern of stars, a similar phenomena would occur. And this is clearly ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Your argument is if you go to Andromeda, you can't see the constellations there.
So if we go to an alien civilization, Andromeda, and they have their own zodiac, you have to have here's the point, all right? You have to have a clone of literally our solar system. And literally, build it all out. You won't find
you're misunderstanding.
Star patterns.
Again, another
anywhere.
Basic misunderstanding. You look out in the sky and you see, and human beings are pattern recognition creatures. We see patterns. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, patterns in clouds, things like that.
We see patterns. Yeah. Some humans in the past have named them. If you were in Andromeda and you were on a planet, even aliens on a planet, they would look out and they would see patterns, and some of them would name those patterns. It's quite a plausible thing to do.
So
I agree with. I think
but you're helping my case, though. You're helping my case.
If your argument is
because it says Allah created these patterns,
the constellations.
Yeah, which are the patterns.
So the constellations are the stars.
Why would Allah create patterns when we know it's the human imagination, as you've just affirmed?
No, you're misunderstanding. So constellations means patterns, does it?
But that's what the Tafsir say.
I'm asking you a question. Does constellation mean patterns?
Yes, it does. That word is an astrological term.
Okay, Rob. Wonderful. I wish you all the best. Have a great life.
But allow me to read the Tafsir. And then you explain to me the Tafsir.
No, but
if you can refute the Tafsir, I'll admit.
Rob,
okay, you're
wasting time here, and I don't see any benefit.
How am I wasting time when I'm going to read your own sources?
No, because your theory is wrong to start with.
Oh my goodness! I'm reading your own sources. I'm asking you about the Arabic term, and you're telling me that I'm the one being disingenuous here. Allow me to read your own sources, and then you react to your own sources.
No, this is a. If you read about manipulation and gaslighting, that some of the ways you're phrasing the words that you're using is a similar thing. And the problem here is this is often we saw this with Pastor Jason Burns, victimhood. When his argument is being annihilated, he turns to, "Oh, you guys aren't treating me nicely." Basically, is what he was saying, and you're not allowing me to speak. And all I'm trying to do is read your sources that you've given me. And what we see with you is. When the point has come down to the only way you can't see the constellations.
To be honest, I think you're not allowing me to just read what I have in front of me.
I understand, but if you're going to read that with the understanding that you have now, then you have a problem with us.
I'm open to correction. If I read it and you explain to me if I've misunderstood the Tafsir, go for it. Why can't I read it? Shall I just start reading it?
Are you going to ignore what the questions I've asked you, and then you're going to go on to this? So you say constellation
means
pattern?
Not. No. I read it, you clarify, and I'm like, all right, based on your clarification, I either accept it or deny it. It's one of the two.
So you're going to deny it, and you're going to,
now you're psychologizing my motive.
I am. I'm not psychologizing. I'm based on past behavior. I'm telling you how you're going to be.
I'm being genuine here. I'm not being disingenuous. Let's test it. All right.
Let's read this.
So Ibn Abbas says.
Tell me what surah you're reading and which tafsir, and I want tafsir Ibn Kathir because that's what you said you're going to use.
So I'm using a website called. Okay, I'll link it to you right now. This is the link. This is QuranX.com for 85.1. There's it in the private chat. And here you have a whole list from Ibn Abbas, Jalalain. So Jalalain says, by the heaven of the constellations, the 12 constellations.
You said. That's what you said.
Yeah, it's in this link that I've just linked in the private chat. So Jalalain, if I'm reading Jalalain, he says, by the heaven of the constellations, the 12 constellations are the planets, as explained in Surah Al-Furqan 25:61.
Rob,
Ibn Kathir says, what? Am I coming through?
You said that you were going to give me Tafsir Ibn Kathir, and you're reading other tafsirs now.
It's a collection of tafsirs in this link. Jalalain is one. Ibn Abbas is another, where he says Allah swears by the heaven which includes mansions of the stars. He swears by the heaven which has mansions between heaven and earth. So these mansions are those lofty towers that Nizam spoke about. And then Ibn Kathir says, positions of the sun and moon, which are the 12 Buruj, the sun travels through each one of these Buruj in 1 month. The moon travels through each one of these in 2 1/3 days, which makes a total of 28 positions, and it is hidden for 2 nights.
Where were you reading?
Ibn Kathir, like in the second paragraph.
Blessed is he who, so it says, blessed is he who is placed in the heaven the Buruj, and placed in the great lamp, and the moon giving light. And then then it goes on to say what?
Read the next paragraph. The beautiful creation.
The heaven holding the Buruj, the beautiful creation. Ibn Jarir chose the view that it means the positions of the sun and the moon, which are the 12 Buruj. The sun travels through each one of these Buruj. In 1 month, the moon travels through these Buruj in 2 1/3 days, which makes a total of 28 positions, and it is hidden for 2 days.
Now, is this for all time? Because we know Big Bang and the Earth's formation. There's a lot that's happened in the last 4 billion years. Earth's moon formation.
Oh my gosh!
So
are you asking me the question?
Earth was formed 4.5 billion years. Moon was 4.4 billion years.
Are you asking me the question? Is this from before the solar system existed?
Yeah, I mean, based on this explanation over here, like, when do we take into account the Buruj in regards to Allah's creation?
Brother Imran, I have a question.
13 billion years.
Was the Quran given to a people 13 billion years ago, or was it given to a people more recently? What I find here really interesting is that Rob has missed a point. And just to be clear, he did ask someone to come on and correct him. He invited that. Rob, do Muslims believe that there is a tafsir from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh?
Sorry, what?
Do Muslims believe that there is a tafsir by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh?
I can't make a comment on that because I'm not familiar with that. I'm just based it on this website.
What tafsir are you reading from? You claimed you were reading from.
So this website collates all these commentators on all these ayahs that I've been reading from.
I'm happy you could tell. I didn't ask you that question though. Well, okay, like, for me, when someone tells me, hey, I'm appealing to an authority, this source is an evidence against you Muslims, I think I would do the basic research and type into Google, like you said, you asked Google earlier.
If you click the link. The link is right there. Shall I give you the link?
You asked me to come correct you, so I'm going to tell you, Muslims do not believe that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh wrote a tafsir. What we have today is a collation of later reports attributed to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, almost none of which are considered to be authentic by any Muslim authority. However, because it is dhanni and qata'i, we are allowed to discuss and entertain them. But as Muslims, we do not believe that Ibn Abbas please let me finish my point. So when you're appealing to a source, just basically, it's a question to you now, because you asked many questions. Do you try to understand the authenticity and reliability of that source? Or is your answer going to be, well, Muslims told me this, therefore it's true?
Yeah, so is this website that I'm linking, is this a non-Muslim website or is it run by Muslims?
It could be run by monkeys. It's not authoritative for me as a Muslim because within our tradition, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh did not write a tafsir.
The same applies.
I put the question to you, and please try to answer the question I asked you. Did you try to see if this was a primary source and if it was authoritative according to Muslim tradition? Yes or no?
Yeah, the same question applies to, say, church father material. I can go to the church fathers to see.
I didn't ask you about the church fathers. I asked you about did you do your research?
I'm giving an example.
I didn't ask for an example, argument by analogy, throw that out the window. Did you do your basic research and check to see whether or not this was primary material that was reliable?
So yes, is Ibn Kathir here not primary material?
I didn't ask you about Ibn Kathir. I did not ask you about Ibn Kathir. you made the claim that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh said X, Y, and Z, and you claim to have done your research. So please answer the question I'm asking you. Please don't try to edit it. My question is not the Bible. My question one more time. Did you do your research?
Yeah, I'm answering you the question.
Okay, did you do your primary research
I'm
to
typing in
authenticate
Quran.com. Link me the relevant tafsirs according to this website's linking of those. I'm not the one going out of my way to search for all the tafsirs. I'm just interested in what the Quran says, and the own website links me to those tafsirs that speak about the 12 zodiacs.
This is beautiful. So you can't do basic primary research when developing your argument. If you type it into Google and Google brings up a website, you don't have to do anything beyond that. That's what you just claimed. Did you not just claim that?
You're expecting me to wade through, which I could do, by the way, and you know I will do that.
Then do it.
Like all these tafsirs and which one's legitimate or not.
Then do it. So here's the thing.
But then you need to correct the web administrator of that website for not using Ibn Abbas.
I'm sorry, but I'm not an authority on the internet, right? I'm not the internet police. Maybe they exist in Australia.
Well, whatever Muslims using this website, they should just cull out Ibn Abbas. But that doesn't rule out Ibn Kathir speaking about the 12 Buruj.
Hold up. So you just made an incorrect claim again. Muslims define sources as being of two things, qat'i and dhanni. Dhanni sources do not need to be policed by anyone because by their nature, they are speculative and thus not authoritative. So had you come on and done your research...
rule out Ibn Abbas then.
I didn't interrupt you.
Then rule out Ibn Abbas. What about Jalalain?
Let me finish my statement.
And Ibn Kathir?
Again, I just said to you the difference between qat'i and dhanni. But let me finish my point. So you just said to me that you can do primary research and yet you didn't. So at what point did you do primary research? Because when I sit down and I've done this with you in front of everyone on streams, I've gone directly to the Greek and I've gone directly to the manuscripts. Which form of primary research did you do other than sitting down on Google? Go.
The Quran's statements and then the links, the hyperlinks to those particular tafsirs.
Who makes you an authority on what the Quran says or does not say?
I don't claim to be an authority. That's why I'm coming on to ask the question. Why does Yusuf Ali have the zodiac there? The same word, he translates two different ways.
Yusuf Ali is not a determinant.
Wait, I'm answering.
No,
I've looked into pre-Islamic Arabian astrology.
Congratulations.
That term is used with respect to that. This particular website links 4 or 5 different tafsirs. Ibn Kathir is a big one. He mentions that it's the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Congratulations, yes.
Jalalain mentions by name Aries, Taurus, and so on.
Jalalain mentions?
Yes. I'll read you Jalalain. Jalalain says, blessed, magnified is he who is placed in the heaven.
Which Jalalain?
It says Jalal al-Jalalain.
Okay, I don't know how
that's all I'm on this website. And he's like 12 of them, Aries, Taurus, Gemini. They are the mansions for the 7 orbiting planets. Okay. There's your lofty towers language.
Does someone want to tell him what Jalalain means? Because he does primary research and he can know this. Do you not know what Jalalain means?
What's Jalalain?
The 2 Jalals.
Okay, so how does me not knowing about Jalalain discount my question about this with respect to the ayah?
Because you're an appealing to an authority that you don't understand and which is not qat'i. If you had come to me and you've said, Ijaz, here's a primary source which is qat'i for you Muslims.
Then which tafsir would be a primary source then?
No tafsir is qat'i for any Muslim unless it adheres to the ijma of the companions. And we would find that in the form of dhahib and your interpretation of the Quran. And we know it's the ijma of the companions that astrology is haram. And one who consults an astrologist, their salah is invalid for a minimum of 40 days. And in fact, within the Sharia, the punishment for this, the ta'zir punishment, is to get lashed. And the difference between Islam and Christianity is, while we can prove this within Islamic tradition that it's forbidden, we know that, like you said, and you accepted, in the Gospels, you find the 3 magicians from the East following a star to find Jesus. That is what I would consider astrology.
I'm fine with that, by the way.
You're fine with astrology in the Bible?
Yeah.
Astrology.
Yes.
Not astronomy. Don't change the word later on. You're fine with astrology.
Yes, I'm fine with astrology in the Bible, yes.
Why are you fine with paganism in the Bible?
But I'm not, I don't worship it, or I don't use it, or neither did the biblical authors.
Yes,
but
they
it's
did.
utilized.
Well, actually, I would correct you here, because you made the argument earlier to Dr. Imran, if Allah in the Quran says he created the constellations, that means that Muslims have to follow the constellations of the pagans, and that would mean that Allah commands shirk.
And that's my question.
No, it's not a question, it's a statement. It's called an implicit question.
My question is, why is it there? If Allah says
God
only worship
created constellations. Anyway, simple question asked and answered.
Which is the zodiac.
Right. So, no, God created constellations, stars in the skies. Now, just here, I want the people in the chat.
The origin of the word means patterns in the night sky. That's what a constellation is. Not stars in the sky.
What?
If you said the globular cluster or the local group, those are more technical astronomical terms, not constellation.
Yeah, let me just check my 7th Arabic dictionary. Globular what again? Globular what?
The globular cluster or the local group.
Yeah, who uses that in the 7th century
or a nebula.
CE? Who uses that in the 7th century CE?
But that's my point. There's only astrology happening. There's no astronomy happening.
You've taken nomenclature. You've taken the nomenclature and you've confused it with belief systems, and that's a basic error in your understanding. And it is highlighted by the fact that you made the claim that if you're in Andromeda, you don't see the same constellations.
And then is Ibn Kathir wrong then? Like if you're discounting all these other.
And when you came to the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, your argument against it doesn't mention any of the things that you've mentioned about astrology or anything like that. The argument you mentioned
about the 20 days of a month, which is zodiacal.
The argument that you mentioned was that were the constellations there at the Big
13
Bang?
billion years ago, I think is what he...
I mean, that's the intellectual level of the argument that you're bringing.
But
so the
constellation. Why is this a problem for us when he admits and accepts that yes, in the Bible he accepts that there's astrology used there? It's not a problem for him. And by the way, you've said you've come to ask us Muslims, and we've told you no, you're wrong. So I would argue asked and answered. Now the question turns on to you. Why do you think astrology is okay in the Bible?
I think it's okay in the Bible for a number of reasons. You have the larger ancient Near East who are astrological. They do worship the sun, moon, and stars. You have statements in the Torah, like Deuteronomy 4:19, that speaks about don't look up to the entire array of the night sky, don't worship the sun, moon, and stars, the signs, and so on.
Oh, and don't worship what?
The sun, moon, and stars.
Does the Quran say that?
The entire array of the night sky. That's Deuteronomy 4:19.
Does the Quran say that, Dr. Imran? I wonder. Okay, but continue.
Yeah, the Bible came first with it, but here's where it gets interesting. In Psalm 19 verse 4, it says that the line goes throughout the entire world, and this is the ecliptic in ancient geocentrical understandings of the night sky. The line is where the sun travels, like it's an imaginary line. So the psalmist, who's David, is saying that the sun follows this line, and it all of creation then speaks knowledge and wisdom through this process of where we interpret the night sky.
Is interpreting by the time you have Daniel, astrology?
I'm coming to the Magi. So by the time you have Daniel, so Daniel wants to, and as a polemic with respect to Babylon, so Daniel and Ezekiel are sort of contemporaneous. So when Ezekiel speaks about the wheels within wheels and the eyes that cover the living creatures' bodies, the eyes there is literally, if you look at the Ugaritic equivalent of the Hebrew, it's literally stars. And the living creatures with the four faces, so the four cardinal directions, so it's the stars that cover the constellation bodies of, the 12 signs of the zodiac as a wheel. That's why wheel within wheel. So the polemic is Yahweh is enthroned, not Marduk, but Yahweh is enthroned above the cycles of time. So then Daniel gives prophecies with respect to when the timing of Messiah will come, the 490 years. And then those Magi who, in their own religion, worship Jupiter as the king planet. Well, Jupiter's in retrograde motion in 3 BC, and by December 2 BC, they come to Jerusalem. And it's based, so the irony here is through astrology, the Magi are interpreting the signs as a king in Israel is going to arise. They don't have the Hebrew scriptures, so they have to rely on Herod, and scholars make the connections between the Magi and Herod. And then Herod goes to the Jews to say, hey, in the scriptures, is this the case? And sure enough, they bring the scriptures. So the Magi following Jupiter, God is sovereign over this whole situation. And Paul in Romans 10 says, yeah, people without the Bible, this is 10:18, people without the Bible are able to come to an understanding of the gospel even without the Bible. And
by
the
following
Magi
the
are a case in
stars.
point. Yeah.
So the stars are a form of guidance for humanity, and we should follow the stars.
That Yahweh is able to sovereignly work through, yes.
So do you often check, like whether you're Aquarius or Gemini, do you check for guidance there?
No, I don't need to.
But let's say you don't have the Bible, would that be okay? Would I be able to open up like the Daily Sunday, the Daily Express, the
Potentially.
Telegraph?
Yeah, potentially God could work through that.
Okay, and we should take that as authoritative?
This is known as, like in Acts 17, Paul makes the same argument with respect to the Greek philosophers on Mars Hill, to the unknown God. Like God is near to each one of us, and he is able to reach and accommodate in, his al-haq in some way through those means. It doesn't mean he has to. No, first you need to read this boxed text, and only then will he get to the truth. God is not intimidated by that. He's big enough to work through whatever means necessary. But I have the scripture now, and I don't need to rely on the zodiac like the Magi.
But if you didn't have the scripture, the zodiac is fine for guidance.
And that in that point in time for the Magi, yeah.
No, like today, like let's say I can't read, I don't know words, hypothetically, would I just be able to look up in the sky and get guidance that way?
I can't answer that because I haven't experienced it. I haven't gone down that experiential route. I'm giving an example in history that's in this biblical text as an example of, here are people who had an inkling of, is this actually going to happen? And sure enough, it did happen. So the interpretation was correct.
So then you don't need the experience. Like you have the text in the Bible saying, yeah, this is a valid process by which God can give you signs. So you don't need the experience. What you've just argued is, yeah, sure, the sky can give you signs, right?
Yeah, for example, Imran just argued a moment ago that if Allah created the Buruj, well, it comes about through a providential means for then people to make up whatever shapes they want, right? My question is, at what period in Big Bang history were the Buruj created as well, if Allah was indeed the guy behind it?
So I think
did it start right at the Big Bang, or did it come...
Look how easily this is answered, Rob. Dr. Imran, did you mean by that statement that God legitimizes and authorizes for us astrology?
Of course not.
Okay, thank you. So, Rob, that would be wrong. So, Rob, now you said...
It says, blessed be he who's made the Buruj.
You said Imran gave the interpretation.
Why say blessed
Rob,
be he?
You just said, Rob, that Imran is the one who explains what he said. I asked him, and he said no. So I think he's the authority on what he said.
I remember first.
I think I've done my. I've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Rob, just one point. I hope you noticed that no one interrupted you when you were giving your explanation of astrology in the Bible, because I think what you said for me as a Muslim. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
All right, no worries.
Oh, Jaz has left. Rob, you started off as when I first spoke with you, you seemed to be this reasonable, relatively intelligent young man who, was thinking and maybe a little bit sort of confused with his scientism head. But you've turned into a complete troll. What's happened to you, man?
Don't say that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I haven't turned into a troll. If you and I met in real life, I'm happy to have biryani with you, for example. So since I know you are Indian,
I can have biryani with trolls anytime, no problem. The question is, you're asking me the question: is the constellations in the sky around the time of the Big Bang or later? I mean, come on, man.
No.
Seriously.
In that ayah, is it just a generic statement not related to time, like blessed be he who's made the Buruj?
Who's going to observe it? Who are the people observing? Are they human beings or non-existing things?
Yes. So but Allah pre-exists humans, right?
How long has human beings been on the planet?
200,000 years, give or take.
Yeah, so it's relevant. The relevance is only for those people who are seeing these things. Come on, I mean, this is like basic stuff. I don't even understand.
But then,
so Rob, thank you. It's been lovely talking to you. I think it's been longer than maybe deserving, but I wish you all the best. And I know you admitted astrology is okay for Christians to use if they don't have access to the Bible. I hope you realize that.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying
that.
Okay,
well, I think review what you said to it does.
Be careful with the terminology. God can accommodate.
If you don't have access to the Bible, you said it's okay as a mechanism to use it.
According to the way God can reach people, that the Bible has room for that. So this is known as redemptive analogies.
I wish you all the best, Rob. You take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, I don't often say this, but that was, I think, a complete waste of time. Really, I mean, it's beyond nuts. It is beyond nuts. Imran, why don't you summarize what we've gone through the stream? And then Nazam, please, you have the last word because you've hardly said anything. Imran.
SubhanAllah. I think let me just summarize this discussion a little bit, because I think to find a word in one translation that you're going to insist is referring to something pagan. Not being able to find another word where place where the word is used differently, and to say, look, this person is using this. Then going to tafsir, which mentions the way people describe these patterns in the sky, and to say that therefore you hold that belief system. And then go to tafsir and say, are these constellations, were they there in the beginning of time, or at the Big Bang or later? If you were in Andromeda, you wouldn't see these constellations. This is the level of argument that we're getting, subhanAllah. And I do agree with Jenny Buffum that it's almost attention-seeking and troll-like, which I tried to explain. But anyway, that aside, Jazakallah khair, apologies for arriving late, and Jazakallah khair everyone for attending the stream. And I agree with the time limit some people are suggesting, and we might adhere to that. Anything good is from Allah, and any errors and mistakes are from ourselves and shaitan. Allah forgive our shortcomings. We really appreciate your support. We're definitely going to try to advertise the streams a lot earlier so you have notification. And the streams are open to anyone, especially the open forum. So whether you're Christian, atheist, Guardiani, whatever you are, you're welcome to have an interaction and a discussion. Jazakallah to my two panelists, Brother Abbas and Brother Nazam. It's always great to have you, Nazam. We didn't get to share some of your great knowledge today as much as usual, but inshallah next time.
No worries. I had no knowledge on the subjects that came up, so I was just learning as I went along. So
alhamdulillah, I'll hand over to you, brothers. Just remember us all in your du'as, and make dua for all our families and the mods. Please remember them as well, who help out a lot and controlling the chat. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.
Nazam, you're supposed to complete the stream, Nazam.
Are we still live?
Yes.
Are we still on? Are we still live? It was nice to see Brother Ijaz. I haven't seen him in a long time. And also, it was nice to meet Howard and Louisa. Last time they came on, I wasn't able to come on, unfortunately. And also, Mayesh, thank you. And also to Jason Burns, sorry I missed you. I might catch up with you at Speaker's Corner. And Rob, I sent you a private message, so hopefully we can continue the discussion privately. So I wish you well, and thank you for watching. And forgive me for my shortcomings.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.